Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's 8 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair. Glad that you have made it to your radio at this time of day on the 18th day of December. Let me see. I've done the math, and I've double-checked it twice. 6 shopping days left till Christmas. I'm got to get started about, I think, maybe tomorrow. The next day, I've got to get started.
Oh, you got plenty of time.
6 days. And it is 28 days until the voting occurs in Iowa. And it seems like an appropriate time to start off with the 2024 update today because, look, this is getting really, really interesting. And if you haven't heard, the president of the United States, he doesn't think there's a problem at all. I mean, if you look at the poll numbers, I think most everyone feels like there's a problem for Biden. But he doesn't seem so. There's an old saying in Washington that denial is not just a river in Egypt. And the president is in denial. He's looking, there may be 50 polls out there that show he's in trouble. And if you look hard, you can find maybe one where he ekes out maybe 1 point lead over Trump. But, most of them are showing Trump in the lead. And, in fact, the Real Clear Politics average of polls has Trump leading over Biden in the general election, somewhere close to 3 points, 2.8 points, something like that. But the president of the United States, I used to be one of these people that would stand outside waiting on the president to walk to his car. And, and my best Sam Donaldson impersonation, Mr. President, you'd yell out a question. Most of the time that falls to producers. The reporters don't like to lower themselves to shouting at a president. They will if they have to, but, they send the producers out. And the producers were yelling at the president about his poll numbers. And they listen carefully to what the president says. He stops and does respond.
Mr. President, why are you losing to Trump in the polls?
Wrong poll. He says you looked at the wrong polls. And hear that? That was a car wreck. And that was the Secret Service running over to stop the guy who hit apparently somebody plowed into one of the vehicles in the motorcade. And they rushed Biden to his car. But, honestly, what you hear here is, as soon as that question was answered, bam. And then they figured out what's going on, and then they rush Biden into his car. But it turns out it was just somebody not paying attention. I think distracted by all of the, the red and blue lights and the Secret Service surround the car. And all that's really happened is that it wasn't like the guy was going 80 miles an hour. It just his bumper fell off. And one of the SUVs that the Secret Service uses was slightly damaged. But they surround the car with their weapons drawn, and you see this poor guy with his hands behind the wheel holding his hands up. But anyway, let's get back to what he said there. He said, look, you're reading the wrong polls. Well, no, we're really not. And I'd like to know, Mr. President, what polls you're reading. I don't know. It just seems like, they keep telling him, the campaign keeps telling him it's not as bad as it seems, but it's pretty bad for Biden right now. And I'm gonna go through some of that for you. Let's start out with disapproval numbers, because that is really a lot of it with Biden. Rasmussen Reports has Biden disapproval number at 55%. 55% of those surveyed by Rasmussen Reports disapprove of the job the president is doing. Monmouth ran the same poll. They came up with 60%. 60% of people who were surveyed by Monmouth believe they disapprove of the president's job performance. Fox News splits the difference. They have disapproval at 57%. I think that's probably about right. But that's not good. When 60%, almost 2/3 of Americans disapprove of the job you're doing, and you're the incumbent, that's not good. And I don't care what the president said. He may be seeing some other polls. But there's 3 polls right there, 3 different, very different organizations running polls who come in basically with the same outcome on disapproval. And that drives a lot of the numbers that I'm going to talk about. In the general election, Fox News has Trump up by 4. That's the popular vote. It's not at the Electoral College. The Electoral College match is much more complex than that. But just, general election, Trump versus Biden, it's +4. They do a survey where they add all the other people in there, and still Trump +4. So that's not real good. By the way, while I have these numbers here in front of me, Trump is leading for the GOP nomination in Iowa, according to CBS News, by 36 points. And the person right behind him, 36 points behind him, not right behind him, 36 points behind him, is DeSantis. But I will say this, the CBS poll and some other polls are starting to show Haley doing better in New Hampshire. Let's see. Trump is ahead of Haley by 15 points. Haley comes in at 29 in second place, well ahead of DeSantis and the rest of the pack. So she's getting a little momentum in New Hampshire, but she's still 15 points behind Trump. So I think Trump wins Iowa the way it looks right now. I think he probably wins in New Hampshire as well, but, there is some momentum for Haley in New Hampshire, and you have to look at that and wonder, could Haley squeak something out or come in a very close second? I don't know. Be interesting to watch. So there are some of your numbers. But the president, again, was on vacation in Wilmington, Delaware, when he said, we're looking at the wrong polls. You're on the wrong polls, he said, trying to deflect from how bad the situation is for him, according to redstate.com. And then, of course, you hear the car wreck. And then everybody else got distracted. But, there you go. It is bad for him. It is bad. It is really, really bad. And now you're starting to hear some people talk about why is it bad. Shannon Bream, Fox News Sunday, looked at some of the internal information that is found in the new Fox News poll. And this is driving some of it, I think.
When it comes to whether the president was involved in Hunter's business or did something related to it, 38% told us they think he did something illegal. This is the president. 27% say something unethical. So that's 65% of Americans who think something shady went on there with regard to the president and Hunter's business. And now we have a flip on impeachment. There are now more Americans who tell us they believe it's a legitimate inquiry than a bogus inquiry. That has flipped since we last polled this in September.
Yeah, it's a legitimate inquiry. And by the way, 60 some odd percent of the people believe that he's done something unethical or illegal. Not good. And I think they're right. I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that. Now, what you're going to see and what you're beginning to hear, how I always talk about the drip, drip, drip of the Biden investigation? Well, this is a cut. This is death by 1,000 cuts, because Democrats now have their long knives out. And they're hiding, as anonymous source said this, and somebody who's familiar with the thinking says this, and blah, 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 blah. A lot of that kind of stuff going on right now. But it is a drip, drip, drip of Democrats now saying Biden needs to maybe get out. From townhall.com, they do a nice assessment of this. Like the rest of the country, former President Obama doubts whether President Joe Biden will secure another term in the White House. According to a report by Annie Linsky, citing an anonymous source in the Wall Street Journal, I read this article, and it could have been Obama himself, but it sounds like he used a surrogate, and the thing was, he said, someone very familiar with Obama's thinking says, and according to this story in the Wall Street Journal, former President Obama, fears that Biden will lose the 2024 elections as various crises mount against the president. The report expressed uncertainty that Biden will be able to beat former President Trump, given the Republican is dominating in the polls. Obama, quote, feels that Democrats very well could lose, and it's going to be a very close race. Not only are voters concerned about Biden's age and physical health impacting his ability to serve another 4 years, but many say his immigration policies, his Israel policies, his economic plans, and his involvement in his son Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings have also been at the top of their minds. Biden's vulnerabilities have plagued his chances of securing the 2024 election, while Trump gets stronger despite politically motivated investigations being thrown at him. I don't know they're politically motivated. I think they're trying to get at the truth. This week, Trump took the lead. This was last week. Took the lead in 7 crucial swing states, including Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, the swingiest of all swing states, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Morning consult political analyst Ellie Yoakley told Bloomberg that Biden is making no gains among groups he will need to pull off in a victory next year. The poll found that Trump has 46 to 42% lead over Biden among registered voters in a hypothetical race in Arizona. This week, a new Reuters Ipsos poll found Trump in the lead, showing independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy taking votes away from Biden. 60% of voters say they want another option for the 2024 presidential race. And among his own party, Trump is the frontrunner for the Republican nomination by a very wide margin, as we have explained. Henry Cuellar said, I want the president to do better, but he's not doing so much, not very well. So, when you have that drip, drip, drip thing going on and people coming at you from all sides, whispered criticisms, and some people not being so whispery about it. I mean, people like, Axelrod, David Axelrod, out on TV saying, he needs to step down. He needs to not run for re-election. From the Washington Examiner, a pretty interesting story about why Trump has started to strengthen. So we've looked at why Biden is sliding, but why is Trump strengthening? That's a good question. Let's look at that. Over the weekend, Fox News released a national poll showed that Republican presidential race, he has 69%, as opposed to 12 for Ron DeSantis, 9 for Nikki Haley. That's right, 69%. That is, 2/3. Meanwhile, 66% would be 2/3, so it's more than 2/3. Meanwhile, the Haley campaign is excited about a new CBS poll showing that the former South Carolina governor is gaining on Trump in New Hampshire. As I said, she still has a ways to go, but it's Trump 44, Haley 29. One notable thing they say about Trump's national lead, now over 50.6 points when you look at all of the different states together, is that it appears to have been turbocharged by the indictments, federal and local, against the former president. Without the indictments, there's no telling where the GOP race would be. I mean, that's right. As I have said many, many times, this guy is like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
I mean, the more you attack him, the stronger he gets. Let me read on. Look at the last day the national race was close, or relatively close. That was March 27th of this year, when Trump led DeSantis in the Real Clear Politics average by 15 points. Just days later, Trump was indicted for the first time, and his poll numbers rose sharply. By April 20th, 3 weeks later, Trump had risen 10 points to 54%, and DeSantis fell 7 points to 22. In the months that followed, Trump was indicted 4 more times, twice by special counsel Jack Smith. It was appointed by the Biden Justice Department, and his poll numbers went up again. So wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't this be rich if Trump gets reelected, and the reason that he got reelected is that there was a backlash against all of these Democrat efforts to find him guilty in a court of law, and they haven't figured that out yet, and they just keep coming at him, and it doesn't matter, because the more they come at him, the stronger and stronger he becomes. Well, anyway, let me move on to this last little bit here. It's Andrew McCarthy, 20 seconds here, talking about how this drip, drip, drip is really starting to have an effect, and talking about a report in the Washington Post that talked about how many Democrats want him to get out and why.
This is a 4,000-word report, which means they spent weeks on it. They could have dropped it at any time, and it dredges up stuff that's been kind of vaguely known for years, and that Joe Biden must have thought that he had, survived that long ago. And here it is again, right at a time when a lot of top Democrats are saying, maybe time for him to get out.
Yeah, I think a lot of Democrats are really putting the pressure. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. between now and January 1st. Watch closely, I think. 23 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you'll know how much it will cost before the care is actually delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family over at Grace Point, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. In conjunction with a high deductible insurance plan, this could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded waiting rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868, to schedule a visit.
The U.S. pushing Israel to slow down their attacks in Gaza. North Korea raising some eyebrows around the world at some recent tests administered there. And a famous actor found guilty of harassment and assault. We'll tell you who at 3:30. Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Well, there's Mac Maury, and I'm pretty sure he's wearing pants today, and that's good. I mentioned in the crosstalk with Matt that everybody was over at the house this weekend, and we had sort of a little secondary party because so many people from work couldn't make the first one that we did for one reason or another. I mean, it's all very good, solid reasons. But so we did a pose with picture of everybody who was there, and Dan Mandis and Matt Murphy and Chris was there, and Mac was there, and so we took a picture on the staircase, and the wives are posing us, and so we get the picture, and I post it, and all anybody wanted to talk about is that it looked like Mac Maury didn't have any pants on.
Yeah, it kind of did.
It
Just
did.
saying. I promise you he did.
He had on shorts,
swear.
and we can, as I said, we can question the wisdom of wearing shorts in December,
Yes,
but he was at least clothed that way. But so I
Christmas card placed just
right in the center.
I recropped the picture so people would quit asking that stupid question, but. But it was good to have you guys all over to the house. It was a lovely gathering, and
it was great for you to have us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
A Cabana wife really just goes in, and I want you to back me up on this, Chris, and you too, Mac. She's got a touch. You have to admit.
Oh, absolutely.
With putting on a big spread, cooking, and artistically, you did the tour of all the trees.
Mm-hmm.
They're all just spectacularly beautiful.
Yeah, fantastic.
It really is something. And now I want to tell you the other side. Sometimes she gets creative, and I sort of, I look askance at it and I go, I don't know about this. So I wake up on Sunday morning, and we have to go to a party that afternoon. And she's got a green blouse and a green boa, a feather boa. It's like Christmas green. And she's taking the boa, and she's sewing it onto the ends of the sleeves of this green dress.
Oh my God!
And so it comes down about to her wrist, and then there's all these feathers, and I thought, well, that's festive, but maybe a little out there, but I got to tell you, we put it on and we went to the thing. We had to go to this party over in Franklin. Our friends the Garretts, so we didn't have to. We had a good time, great time, and we go over there, and she's wearing this, and she's getting all these compliments about it. But our living room looks like a green chicken exploded. There are green feathers everywhere. And at the party, if I lost her, I would just look down on the floor and follow the trail of green feathers, and I would find her. But
look, it's what do they say? It's form over function.
Yeah. Well, I'm all about function.
Yeah.
And she's all about form.
Yeah.
I'd say no. To me, the thing needs to function. It's just no. It needs to be aesthetically beautiful.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things don't align.
That's true.
But anyway, her apparently, from what I'm hearing and from what I heard, everybody thought this green blouse with the chicken feathers was something really remarkable. But we had a good time, and it was really great having you guys over on Saturday night.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We are partied out. And, now we can start to slowly, even though it went up early, now we can start to slowly but surely disassemble 11 Christmas trees.
Oh,
Yeah, you'll be done by what, June?
Yeah, maybe you're right. It's, we're running late. 32 minutes now past the hour. Time for the news.
32 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 43 degrees, a sunny but windy day in Nashville. Got a weather forecast along with traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. The United States putting pressure on Israel to scale back its attacks on Gaza that's continued today with a visit From U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Andy Field.
Defense Secretary Austin encouraging Israeli counterparts to end the intense Phase 1 of bombing Hamas in Gaza, saying it's time to switch to Phase 2.
And then provide more humanitarian assistance while still focused on a discrete set of targets.
Israel's counterattacks in Gaza have not only killed civilians, but at least 3 of their own citizens held hostage in that October terror attack.
And this comes just days after the IDF confirmed that 3 of their own people were killed in an accidental shooting during a raid that was to find Hamas militants. In North Korea, they're raising alarms around the world again, test firing short and, more worryingly, long-range missiles. The launch, the North's first ICBM test flight in some 5 months. And a conviction in the assault and harassment trial of Hollywood actor Jonathan Majors. Derek Dennis.
After about 5 hours of deliberations over 3 days, jurors issued a split verdict in the Jonathan Majors assault and harassment trial involving his ex-girlfriend. The Hollywood actor convicted of 1 count of assault and 1 count of harassment, but acquitted of a 2nd count of assault and a 2nd count of aggravated harassment. The mixed verdict suggests the jury did not believe Majors intentionally committed aggravated harassment, but did believe he committed the lesser act of harassment against his ex, Grace Jabari, in the backseat of an SUV last March. Majors faces up to a year in jail.
And that is the latest news, weather, traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Laughing, learning, friendships. Not the words normally associated with trying to lose weight. But with Awaken 180, you're not trying. Weekly weight loss while gaining the tools to keep it off. Free support for life, friends for life. Learn how over 17,000 clients succeeded with the solution for weight loss.
39 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on this 18th day of December. Glad you're with us on this Monday. It's breezy outside. I lost one of my last remaining inflatables today.
Uh-oh.
Don't tell Cabana wife. She's going to be very upset. But one of the Nutcracker inflatables at the end of the driveway, it got punctured.
Gone, huh?
I should have learned my lesson. But I didn't. And, you should deflate them in high winds.
That's true.
Yeah.
But, of course, then they become kind of a...
Yeah, then they, kind
of a sail.
It wasn't going to go very far because it was all just staked down. But I mean, they get battered.
Yeah.
So it's better to just make them look like a little puddle on the ground, rather than leave them inflated. So one of the two did not survive, and
feel like you should play taps.
Yeah, that's right. For the little soldier Nutcracker. That's right. I want to talk about the Biden Incorporated investigation and where it all is. Man, oh man alive. There's a lot going on with this thing. And again, I hate to keep using this one, but the drip, drip, drip thing is just getting more and more and more. Let's listen to this. Senator Lindsey Graham, quoted in the Epoch Times. Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, believes the narrative being presented by Hunter Biden in response to the impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden is falling apart. In other words, his story is not standing up. Hunter Biden has been the subject of several ongoing criminal cases over the business dealings. His father's accused of being directly involved in his son's activities and abusing the power by allegedly profiting from his father's office as vice president, enabling bribery and other high crimes. The White House and President Biden have both denied this, and Hunter Biden's attorney claims the whole affair is just part of it's a vast political agenda. But during a December 17th interview on Meet the Press, Senator Graham said Hunter Biden's narrative that his father knew nothing about his business has begun to unravel in the light of day. The idea that Joe Biden knew nothing about the business dealings is falling apart. However, Graham also conceded the impeachment inquiry has a tall order ahead of it, actually proving the accusations against the president. He believes if there is any evidence showing the president had committed the crimes he's accused of, it would already be public knowledge. I'm not sure I agree with Graham on that. I think it's still there's still some digging to be done, and I think they know more than they have said. Here's a story from Town Hall. These 5 Democrats support Joe Biden's impeachment. This week, the House voted to formally approve the impeachment inquiry. That was last week, actually, claiming he used his political power to make his family billions. While speaking on Newsmax, Wake Up America, Rod Finnerty, Senator Markwayne Mullin, Republican of Ohio, said he knows 5 Democrats in the Senate are willing to look at an impeachment case against Biden. So if an impeachment is brought and it comes out of the House and gets sent to the Senate, Markwayne Mullin, Republican of Oklahoma, says he knows of 5 Democrats that are willing to look at an impeachment case against Biden. In other words, they wouldn't reject it out of hand. Mullins insisted the Senate covers both Republican and Democrat issues fairly. If the House sends over an airtight case that is completely and easily points to the president breaking the law with treason, misdemeanor, high crimes, that they would just try to make it look like it would any other case and go into it without a bipartisan look. He alluded that several Democrats privately told him they would vote in favor of impeachment against Biden should the opportunity arise as follows. Here's what it was said. Finnerty, have any Democrat senators, this is the reporter, any Democrat senators mentioned to you off the record that they would look at it fairly and objectively? Yes. I'm talking about a yes vote on impeaching the president if it gets there. They said if it was a convictable offense, they would definitely be looking to convict. Okay, and not a non-bipartisan look. I've had that conversation with 5. I will not name them because I don't want to put them in a position, but with 5 separate senators, all 5 of them said the exact same thing. Finnerty said 5 Democrats are open to voting for impeachment. Mullin said yes. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? On Wednesday, every Republican voted in favor of the measure to officially make the impeachment inquiry, voted on by the House. And all Democrats, straight from taking action to solve action on the southern border. We'll talk about that in a bit. So James Comer, who is conducting the investigation in the House, says that he believes that James Biden, brother of Joe, will be coming in for his deposition before long. Here's what he said.
We're communicating with his attorney. We expect to see him in very soon. I'm going to hold off criticism of the president's brother. Obviously he has due process, and we have heard from his attorney. We're trying to make that work, and I feel like that'll happen soon.
You know, I've heard that a couple of times. We've heard from Comer, who says, I think it's going to work out that James Biden will come in. That'll be interesting if it does. Jen Psaki, who used to be the communications person, there used to be the Jean-Pierre of the administration, is now talking head over at MSNBC. And she, you know what she said? She said one thing that the White House wants desperately, because she's still in contact with all those people. She says that they want Hunter Biden to quit talking publicly, because he's talking a lot.
If you're sitting in the White House right now, you're like, please, Hunter Biden, we know your dad loves you. Please stop talking in public. This is not helpful to any of them for him to be out there. But at the same time, the president loves his son. That takes precedent over anything else.
Well, he's not going to stop talking because, his attorney is telling him to do this. Abby Lowell. And I think that's probably going to continue to happen. Jonathan Turley, one of the great legal minds of our day, says there is enormous amount of evidence of Joe Biden's connection to his son's corruption, and he says it's impeachable. Let me read from thedailycaller.com. Fox News analyst Jonathan Turley stated Sunday President Joe Biden's connection to his son's corruption case is a cause for impeachment given the enormous amount of evidence. Turley appeared on Fox News Sunday to discuss the process. And Fox host Shannon Bream asked the legal analyst about his thoughts on those who claim there is no smoking gun. Turley pushed back against that argument, saying not only has there been an enormous amount of evidence against the president and his family, but that most people agree it is influence peddling. It's simply not true. I mean, there's been an enormous amount of evidence put together by the House committees. Millions of dollars have gone through a labyrinth of different accounts and shell companies to Biden family members. There are Biden associates who said that what the president has said publicly is nonsense, that he did know about the influence peddling, and that most people agree that this is influence peddling. This is corruption. Turley continued to state there is no necessity to really show that the money had gone directly to Biden. This is true, and this is something that, the Democrats are trying. Well, there's no proof that the money went directly to Biden. Doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to the conversation. If the family profited, it's still considered bribery. Again, Turley continued to state there's no necessity to really show that the money had gone directly to Biden for him to be impeached, emphasizing the standard in federal cases that have involved bribery and other similar crimes. But I have to correct one notion that's being bantered about, and that is that you really have to show the money went directly to the president. That's not the standard in federal cases involving bribery and other crimes. Giving money to a principal's family members is, in fact, a benefit under federal law. Otherwise, everyone would just give money to family members and say it was not a bribe. It's not impeachable. And by the way, it is impeachable, he says. I was lead counsel in the last traditional impeachment trial. My client was impeached because benefits were given to a judge's family member. So many of these congressmen repeating this argument voted on that impeachment and said it is impeachable. Yeah, it is. Biden voting 221 to 212. That was the impeachment inquiry. They're formally making it a vote in the House to say go forward, even though it was already going forward. And so that gives that investigation a lot more credibility. And again, I want to come back to this soundbite with Andrew McCarthy. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andy McCarthy discussed how the scandal centered around the Biden family's international business dealings. The Washington Post had a story that goes through a whole litany of old stuff. It's like 4,000 words. it's something, when you see a story out there that's 4,000 words, that means it's something that the news agency has worked on for quite a while. And I think it's part of the drip, drip, drip pressure to get Biden to step down and not run for re-election. But he says, look, there's a lot of stuff that was dredged up that, Biden probably, had thought he'd been able to skate away on. And it's coming back open at the time when there's a lot of other people saying, I don't know, the Democrats apparently whispering that Biden should not run for re-election. Again, Andrew McCarthy.
This is a 4,000-word report, which means they spent weeks on it. They could have dropped it at any time. And it dredges up stuff that's been kind of vaguely known for years, and that Joe Biden must have thought that he had, survived that long ago. And here it is again, right at a time when a lot of top Democrats are saying, maybe time for him to get out.
Timing-wise, so if something were going to happen, I think there are two times where it might happen. One would be at the convention, which, will be this summer. But I don't think that Democrats are going to stand by and allow that to happen. So, look, when would be the other time where you might see something happen? Just before the holidays. Everybody says if you're going to drop bad news, drop it like on the Friday before Christmas. Well, that's this coming Friday. I don't know, maybe just before the Friday before New Year's, when people are, celebrating and out. It seems that they feel like that will take the sting out of it. If he steps down and says he's not going to run, man, it's going to be interesting because it recasts the entire thing. Because it won't be Kamala, I'm pretty sure. 51 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Genesis Diamond has just the relief you need this holiday season. 5 years, 0% interest on anything and everything. That's right. Genesis has rolled back interest rates to 0.0%. So that $5,000 diamond ring is yours for just $85 a month. People are loving this offer, especially this year when finance rates are so high everywhere else. Nothing is held back at Genesis. Rings, earrings, bracelets, brands, certified natural diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, even luxury pre-owned Rolex watches. Just pick any item for that special someone and spread your payments over 5 years without paying a dime in interest. $10,000 designer ring comes to just $167 a month. So don't miss this incredible offer. Colored gemstones, designer fashion jewelry, this year's most treasured gifts, all included in this once-a-year offer. At Genesis, they are breaking all the rules to make sure this holiday season your money goes as far as it possibly can. Best prices, unbeatable selection, highest quality, and super aggressive financing. Merry Christmas from Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs, on approved credit only.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement, put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return is going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
The Senate needing more time for a border deal, a fatal crash investigation, and we've got a college poll looking at some politics as far as Tennesseans see the GOP working out. 4 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Mac Morey. Mac Morey in the newsroom, Chris Weber there in the control room. Everybody's in their proper place in our places with our bright, shiny faces. Okay, looking at the markets. Dow Jones Industrials up just less than a point, but up. S&P is up 21, NASDAQ is up 90. I mean, it's all screens are green, and they have been green a lot recently. So let's find out what's going on with all that. Check in with John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management. Good afternoon, John.
Yeah, hey, Brian. We actually finished or started the last full week of trading of the year, and it starts a 7-week rally that the markets have really maintained for quite a while. The Dow is actually near a record level, and the S&P 500 is actually 2% from its record high. And, of course, all this seems to be that the market's convinced that the Fed next year is going to, not only have they pivoted, but they're going to cut rates faster and more than what they have expressed. A couple of Fed officials came out today and tried to kind of calm that down a little bit, but investors and the Fed are going to be watching very closely on Friday as we get another inflation report through the personal consumption report that's coming out on Friday. But so far, going on our 7th week of green.
All right. Thank you much, John. You'll find out about all the things that they do over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 59 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 43 degrees in Nashville. Got a traffic report and a windy weather forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Hopes fading fast for an agreement to be reached by the end of the year on changes to border policy as part of a package that also funds aid to Israel and Ukraine. Here's Stephen Portnoy with the latest.
Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says negotiators keep making progress on border policy.
I'm confident we're headed in the right direction.
While the two sides appear aligned on the need to curb asylum claims, sticking points remain. The GOP says the decades-old humanitarian parole authority has been abused by this administration to admit hundreds of thousands of people who otherwise wouldn't be allowed to stay in the U.S. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says even if negotiators do reach an agreement, Republicans will need to review the legislative text.
It's going to require some time.
And so, this brings the chances that the Senate will pass something before year's end to nearly zero. Crime in Tennessee. Metro Police investigating a fatal crash that happened yesterday morning in South Nashville. It began with two people inside of a speeding vehicle. They lost control through an intersection at Polk Avenue off of Nolensville Pike. The car hit a utility pole, caught fire. Both people died in that collision. No identities have been released. Officials say that they think the two were men from Cookeville. And a Utah mother who was famous on YouTube for her tough love approach to parenting has entered a guilty plea to child abuse. Here's Alex Stone.
Today we are starting off our date.
Her videos were watched by parents around the world, offering lessons in tough love. But 41-year-old Ruby Frankie was arrested in August after one of her children escaped from her business partner's home emaciated. Now in court, Frankie pleading guilty in a plea agreement to child abuse charges.
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
The judge will sentence Frankie in February.
Here in Tennessee, an exclusive Tennessee and Siena College poll has found 9% of respondents who identified themselves as Democrats said they would support Trump. This survey finds 49% of respondents would like Trump to be the next president of the United States, while 20% said they would like Biden to remain in office for 4 more years. The poll surveyed a cross-section of Tennesseans, both registered voters and those who are not. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hour number 2 of the big 4-hour extravaganza now beginning. You're listening to The Drive, and I am Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. Mac Morey's in the newsroom, Chris Weber in the control room, and we are glad that you have tuned us in wherever you are. And you know, I mean, a lot of people on the highways and byways, and we're tickled that you find favor with what we do, and glad to have you along for our conversation, our assessment of what's going on in the world around you. Across the nation, up your street, and down your alley. We want to look at the border situation right now. You remember that, the House and Senate have adjourned, and, it doesn't look like the House is coming back until January. Looks like that the Senate might come back if there's a reason for it to come back, but there's a big fight going over about border security. Republicans in the Senate, God bless them. I mean, they finally, for one time, found a little backbone, and they're standing with the Republicans in the House, and they are saying to the president, there will be no money Not one red cent for Israel, not one red cent for Ukraine until you fix the border. And this is causing great consternation. But, I mean, finally, we have Republicans, willing to stand their ground and not just, roll over. I'm so glad that they finally have found the strength to do that. So we'll see how long that holds. In the meantime, from thehill.com, where does the package stand? See, they gotta come up with something that everybody can sign off on, or it's not going anywhere. No deal has been reached. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told colleagues on Thursday that he plans to set a vote for this week, which means that the Senate would have to come back before Christmas. The immigration portion, the package will reportedly include new authority to expel migrants without asylum screenings and expand detention and deportation policies. This is something that Republicans say is the bare minimum that must be done. The emerging deal, according to The Hill, is causing some strife among Senate Democrats. Some Democrats, including Latino caucus members, worry the immigration provisions will be too harsh. On the other hand, some Democrats acknowledge the problem at the border and think that President Biden should address the issue. A logistical problem. In order to pass the bill this week with a short turnaround, Schumer could advance the legislative vehicle for the package before the details are hashed out. I don't like this at all. This concerns the Democrat colleagues who worry the bill could move too quickly without them having enough time to understand the details. The Hill's Alexander Bolton points out that President Biden is in a bind over this, but he's already having trouble with young Democrats over his Israel-Palestine policies, and now this emerging food fight is adding tension with his Latino base. Biden's readiness to embrace a deal appears to be part of a calculation that he needs to appeal to more moderate and independent voters to win re-election, given the persistent skepticism among many younger voters, progressives, about a second term with Biden. See, that young people are abandoning Biden. I don't think they're going to vote Republican, but I don't think they're going to vote for Biden either. And he knows that. So maybe he's decided I've got to appear more moderate, and maybe I need to go ahead and fix this border thing. In the House of Representatives, Representative Mark Green of Tennessee says he is absolutely going to bring articles of impeachment against Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for his response to the southern border crisis. That is the correct thing we should be doing. I will agree with that. Green said on Fox News his committee has been investigating Mayorkas for several months, and that the probe is set to conclude this month. That would be the month of December. The committees will have 3 or 4 hearings in January and will then edit the impeachment articles that have already been brought by several different members of Congress before Green introduces the articles of impeachment on the House floor. Explaining why he's leading the push to impeach Mayorkas, Green said the secretary is derelict in his duties. He's broken the laws of the United States that have passed Congress. He lied to Congress. The guy needs to go. He also said the removals of illegal immigrants under Mayorkas decreased 5-fold, while record numbers of illegal immigrants are entering the United States. It shows their intent is basically to fundamentally change the population of the United States, and I believe to empower the Democrat Party into perpetuity. This from the Tennessee Star. I think he's right. Mark Green, because he's the chairman of the Homeland Security Department, is the guy to do this. He has immense respect in Congress. And by doing this, I think, look, I mean, I believe he's right. Mayorkas is not following the law. When you take the oath of office, you raise your hand and you take an oath and you say you're going to faithfully execute the laws of this country. And Mayorkas is not doing that. I mean, that's what Biden wants, but he's not doing that. But, if you're being asked by the president to do something that you know is in violation of the laws of this country, you have an obligation to say, no, Mr. President, I can't do that. And if you can't come to some kind of agreement on how you're going to go forward, it's your job to step down, not just do it. I think Mayorkas thinks he's fine, but he's going to be in trouble and he is going to be impeached. And I'll tell you, it'll be a squirmy thing for some Democrats in the Senate if the impeachment goes over there And Democrats have to consider the impeachment. I think that it's going to be a few Democrats who think that, yeah, he has violated the law. There are Democrats in purple states who are going to really be squirming about this one when it lands on their doorstep. Marsha Blackburn talking about the situation, the border standoff, today on Fox News.
Chuck Schumer is not happy. He's not getting the Christmas tree that he has every year, where they just really ramp up the spending. And that was the purpose of having this great big $106 billion spending bill, because we have the CR that comes up in January, and we don't have that push right here at Christmas, so they've manufactured one. Now, Republicans have held together and have said, no talk about anybody else's border until we secure our border. We have a crisis. You have in Arizona, there at Lukeville, they had to close that border crossing. You're hearing they're closing a train crossing. You know that 17,000 people a week that are coming there to Arizona. The Border Patrol is saying they can't handle it. The governor is saying, I'm going to send in the National Guard, even though during her campaign she's called out other governors who were trying to use the National Guard and enforce border security when it was coming into their states. So this is, and every town's a border town, every state is a border state situation, and people want to see something done for our national security, our economic security, and our humanitarian crisis that we are in at this point because of that southern border.
She's right on everything, absolutely right. And I'm glad that, she and the Senate Republicans are standing together. So far, it looks like the president's going to blink on this one, and we're going to finally see some kind of reform down on the border. It's like, closing the barn door after all the animals have escaped. But nonetheless, it seems like, they're going to finally do something. Bill Malugin is back on the border for Fox News talking about the situation, and he was describing a situation in Eagle Pass. Literally, if you were to see the drone footage, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of migrants have landed. They got off a train at Eagle Pass.
Over in Eagle Pass, they have had another mass illegal crossing out there. You can see hundreds upon hundreds of illegal immigrants waiting for processing there. You might be able to see a bridge off in the background. That is where the trains come in. Well, CBP has announced they are suspending railway operations to move CBP officers down into the field to help Border Patrol with processing. In other words, they're shutting down international commerce in order to help speed up processing of these migrants. Many of them, again, will be released. December is traditionally one of the slowest months at our southern border, but the Border Patrol Union tells us right now their numbers show they are on track to potentially have the highest single month of arrests they have ever had at our southern border.
I mean, that's right. December. I mean, a lot of people don't want to travel. If you were thinking about going to America, you would probably wait till after Christmas. You definitely don't want to go during the cold time of the year if you can avoid it. And so, really, honestly, it generally comes down to a trickle in December. And right now, we got more people coming across the border than perhaps we have ever had. It's a disaster. I don't know. I'm running out of adjective to describe just how bad the situation is down there. And they're coming across the border, and they're coming to towns in our own backyard, and Border Patrol is completely overwhelmed. They're shutting down train traffic, which, that brings, goods and services that are made in Mexico to the United States. We actually do a lot of manufacturing down there, and that's having to stop because people are jumping on the trains and coming across and coming up the border. So they're just stopping all train traffic for a while. Border crossings are closed. So the economic activity that it always is important around a border is non-functioning. It's how bad can it get? So, again, a little too late. And the Biden administration, they knew this. This is what they do. They will violate a policy, or they'll decide they know that something is not legal, And they're not going to stop doing it. That's what they want to do. They're not going to stop doing it until they are ordered to do so by a court or by, in this particular case, an act of Congress. And so they'll continue to do and continue to do and continue to do. And then when they say, oh, well, you can't do that anymore, it's okay. Well, but I mean, in the meantime, how many millions of people have come across since Joe Biden took office? Millions. 2 million people that are known and unknown gotaways. And we don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're up to. But I don't feel good about it. And neither should you. So, yeah, let's impeach Mayorkas. And by the way, this ought to be included in articles of impeachment against Biden. It's his policy. 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Now is the time to leave your pain in 2023. Get on the right path and be pain-free for 2024 with help from the Wellness Institute of Nashville. You see, they've had all year long this 2023 special. And it's a chance, really a good chance to get rid of pain that you might have, and it'll all start with one $23 appointment. Have you been diagnosed and getting treatment but still have chronic pain? Well, Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley have had tremendous success in providing correct or missing findings on MRI reports. They can provide you with the stuff that the other folks missed and then recommend a thoughtful and customized treatment. And it'll only cost you for your first appointment, if you're a new patient, $23. Have you had your MRI report explained in detail? Bring in that MRI report for analysis, or let Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley do their own x-rays. Again, you'll get your first treatment for $23 with state-of-the-art therapy and equipment. You are much more than a number at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, and they care deeply about helping you get pain-free. 615-246-5009. Again, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
The United States wants the violence to slow down in Gaza. An update from the Vatican and some money news. Those stories at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes. Oh, it's the first emergence of Christmas music on the show.
Yeah. Slip that in every now and then.
I love Christmas music so much. It just puts me in a good mood. I don't like it too soon. I don't like it, when you walk into a store like, right after Halloween and they're playing Christmas music.
Oh yeah.
But I do love it. I really, it's proper. Once you get to December, it's all game. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But are you on December 26th? It needs to be done.
Oh yeah, you got to put it away. As soon as
pretty
Christmas.
much. That's blasphemy in my house. You can't say nothing bad about the Hallmark Channel. Let's talk about some woke news. The Tennessee Attorney General is in the news. That's right, Jonathan Scarmetti. He is suing BlackRock, one of the big investment firms in our country. The state of Tennessee is suing BlackRock, the world's largest financial asset manager, in a first-of-its-kind lawsuit alleging the firm has harmed consumers through its environmental commitments and climate strategy. This is called ESG. And some investment firms have started to rate stocks not based on whether or not they will make you a profit, which I think ought to be the only thing that they look at. I don't think they should be doing social engineering with people's investments. But they now say, well, okay, we like this stock because it's very green friendly. We like this stock, and we don't like this stock because we don't like their policies with regard to the environment or whatever. According to the lawsuit filed in court on Monday, BlackRock has articulated two inconsistent positions. One is they promise to prioritize financial returns. The other is to prioritize investment policies to combat climate change. None of these two things are inconsistent. They are absolutely inconsistent. While BlackRock has faced widespread opposition over its so-called environment social governance, ESG strategy, Tennessee's action on Monday, today, is the first legal challenge to accuse BlackRock of violating consumer protection laws. We alleged, this is the Scarmetti's suit, that BlackRock's inconsistent statements about its investment strategies deprive consumers of the ability to make an informed choice. Some public statements show a company that focuses exclusively on return on investment. Others show a company that gives special consideration to environmental factors. Ultimately, I want to make certain that corporations, no matter their size, treat Tennessee consumers fairly and honestly. He's right about this. I mean, honestly, if you are investing money, it is your hope and expectation that the company that is managing your portfolio is making decisions about its investment strategy based on one thing and one thing only. Is it a good investment? Does it get a good return on the dollars that you invest? That ought to be the only consideration. Not, okay, well, let's take some of these guys out of the fix because we don't like their environmental policies, and we're going to replace them with others that may not make you as much money. No, make me money. I'll worry about the rest of it, okay? If I got problems with what you're doing, then I can choose not to invest there. But, I mean, most people don't know they're doing this. ESG, it is taken over. It is the DEI of the investment world. ESG, DEI, EIEIO. Tennessee sues, here's another story on it. For the first time, in what proved to be a precedent-setting case, a global asset manager is being sued for allegedly leveraging investors' money to pursue political goals. Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Scarmetti. Lawsuit today. $9 trillion that BlackRock manages right now, charging the firm has been on the forefront of using aggressive strategies to push controversial environmental, social, and governance goals across these assets it manages. In other woke news, I'm going to come to that with less. The Church of England have officially sanctioned blessings to same-sex partnerships for the first time on Sunday. Didn't I read? I think I read something that said the Pope had also said.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Anglicans and Catholics now, apparently the priests can now conduct same-sex marriages without fear of being in violation of church doctrine. I guess that is. I just find it interesting that they're doing that. And then there's this story. Senate staffer caught filming gay sex tape in a Senate hearing room. This is Hart 216. It's in the big Hart building. It is, this is where, all the big hearings take place. And I'm not kidding you. There are clips out there. They've been blurred out, so that they're not. But it's basically two guys going at it in the Senate. And, that's right. St. Hart's is 16. It's late at night, and there's nobody around. And the video, the clips, if you care to see them, are out there. You won't find them on yourfarm.com. I promise you that. They've not confirmed the identities of the amateur porn video, but oh my gosh. It happened apparently where Senator Klobuchar normally sits. So they'll have to bring in the steam cleaners and the disinfectants.
Oh, my.
It is 31 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.31, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 40 degrees in Nashville and windy. Forecast traffic report just ahead in 5 minutes. While the war continues in Gaza, the United States is praising Israel for doing more to get critical food and medicine into that region. Andy Field with the latest.
By now, virtually everyone's familiar with the Rafah crossing from Gaza to Egypt, one of few places people get out and aid comes in. Israel now opening another crossing at Kerem Shalom.
That we see not just humanitarian aid delivered, but also commercial goods that can be sold in stores and markets.
State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller saying the U.S. continues pushing for a ceasefire and negotiated deal for peace and hostages released.
And Israel now under international calls for a ceasefire, which its defense forces say only helps strengthen Hamas. And some news coming from the Vatican. Reports say Pope Francis has formally approved allowing priests to bless same-sex couples, saying requests should not be subject to moral analysis. And now over to some money news from Daria Albinger.
Stocks are moving higher to start the week. The Dow closed up a fraction. The Nasdaq added 91 points, and the S&P rose 22 points. The momentum continues a strong streak that's brought 7 straight weeks of gains. U.S. Steel soared 27% after agreeing to be acquired by Japan's Nippon Steel. The Pittsburgh company, which played a major role in the nation's industrialization, is being acquired in an all-cash deal that's valued at just over $14 billion. It'll expand Nippon's production in the U.S. and add to its positions in Japan and India. The agreement may also allow the company to keep its headquarters in Pittsburgh. Mortgage and loan giant Mr. Cooper says almost all of its current and former clients may have been impacted by a major security breach. Just weeks after Walmart removed self-checkout kiosks from several stores, Target is limiting the number of items customers can self-scan.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
You know, I talk all the time about USS United Structural Systems because they're the company that I think you should call if you have a problem with foundation issues, waterproofing issues, the big stuff, cracks in the walls, you know, the whole thing. But I want you to know that they have such a great reputation. I often read, but I want to read this one from Joshua here in Nashville. He talked about his experience with USS. Recently had our foundation repaired by the team at USS, and it was an exceptional experience. They finished ahead of schedule, kept us informed every step of the way, restored everything perfectly, even after digging deep into our lawn and tearing out concrete. Their professionalism and courtesy stood out, working seamlessly around other vendors at our house and explained all the changes that came up front. Communication was top-notch and friendly, making the process smooth. What impressed us most was the cleanliness. They contained the mess and left the site spotless. We got multiple quotes, and USS's was not only competitive, but honest, without the unnecessary add-ons we saw from others. I highly recommend USS. That's Joshua in Nashville. Listen, if you need this kind of work done on your house, don't mess around with anybody else. This is the company you want. USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com, or call this number, 615-488-7855.
Specifically regarding precision ag, this is a movement or an initiative that Pheasants and Quail Feather is taking on where we can help farmers take advantage of the data they collect and during harvest, during planting season, and use that to identify areas in the field that are underproducing for whatever reason. Maybe it's shade, water, there's perennial wet spots, odd areas that are just hard to farm. Farm equipment's getting big now, and it's hard to farm some of these smaller areas. And so these areas that the yield isn't high enough to exceed the input costs, we're losing money on those acres. So Are there some alternate land use covers, wildlife covers that we can use and put on the ground that benefit wildlife but also benefit the bottom line? There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of conservation programs and conservation practices out there that can benefit the land, and they require management. And so some people might be familiar with the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. And that is a program administered by USDA for farmers and landowners to take those certain areas out of production and return them to a wildlife cover beneficial to different wildlife.
We started taking non-productive acres years ago and putting them in CRP, and seeing a great benefit of that, not only for wildlife, but erosion control and the money side of it. You know, we have to make a living to stay in business just like everybody else. You know, if you've got non-productive acres that you're losing money on, and you can get something out of them, plus benefit the soil from erosion, plus benefit the wildlife.
It is 39 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. You know, a lot of people are going to be traveling this holiday season, and more than a fair number of people who depart out of Nashville will fly on Southwest Airlines. We've become a major hub for that airline. And I love me some Southwest Airlines. I do. I mean, honestly, I remember when they first started, I was like one of the first early people who took Southwest Airlines when it was just a regional airline in Texas. And back in those days, I mean, everything went through Dallas. You could get to any other place in the state of Texas in about 2 hours. And the idea was you had to go through Love Field in Dallas and And it was an unusual airline, and it was, regional at first, then it started to expand and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a behemoth now, one of our major airlines. I mean, I've been flying Southwest Airlines so long that when I first started flying Southwest Airlines, the flight attendants looked like Hooters waitresses.
Oh, I've seen those photos.
Yeah, I mean, short shorts. I mean, it was flying the friendly skies back in those days. But, it's changed over time, and with some of the changes, sometimes I got to say, I'm having a little trouble. I generally like the idea of Southwest Airlines. I almost always fly them if I can, but I'm going to have to reconsider over this story. I remember one time I was flying Southwest Airlines, and sometimes the middle seat, somebody sits near the window and you sit near the aisle. I always try to get near the aisle. I like being on the aisle. And you hope that the middle seat doesn't get filled. So this gives you a little bit of elbow room, a little bit of room to stretch out. And so I always sort of like, there have been a time or two when people are coming down the aisle and they're trying to decide if late in the boarding process, and they're eyeing that center seat, and you go,
start to sniffle.
Yeah, no, it's just allergies, man. Come on, have a chair. No, they go, I don't want to sit next to that guy. No, I'm teasing. But I mean, you'd love to leave that center seat open. Well, this one time, the center seat is open and the plane is they've almost finished the boarding process, and very, very late in the process comes a woman, and I'm not trying to make fun of her. I'm not. I mean, because I know people struggle with obesity at times, but this woman was wider than she was tall. And she's looking at the only seat that's still open, which is the one next to me. And I'm not going to be rude ever. And so she said, "Can I sit in the center seat?" And she got into the center seat, and I'm not kidding you. She was halfway into my seat. Literally, the only way I could get into my seat was there's a little trick, if longtime flyers know, where you can raise the armrest on the left side, if you know where the little latch is.
On
and
the
I
aisle
raised
side,
it.
yeah.
And I'm literally, I had one butt cheek hanging out in the aisle. I was sitting I had half of my chair. And I'm like, and there's no place for me to go. What am I going to do? And so at one point, I'm hanging out in the aisle, my butt's half out in the aisle, and the flight attendant comes from the back, and he's going through, "Sir, you can't do that. You need to," and then he turned around and realized, oh, I couldn't. And he stopped mid-sentence and just turned and kept going. I later find out that this person apparently showed up at the last minute and did not book a second seat, which is what used to be the policy. And then just expected that they would try to solve the problem, and never imagined that there was only one seat left on the plane. And I had to sit like that all the way to the destination. I think I was going to Baltimore at the time. And I thought, these people are called customers of size. That's the official term for them, customers of size. Well, now Southwest has a new policy for customers of size. If you show up and you're a customer of size, they will accommodate you with an extra seat. And guess what? If the plane is full, they'll bounce other passengers to accommodate the customer of size. That's the new Southwest policy. And it happened to this woman who was coming back from a Montego Bay, and she has a connection in Baltimore, and then she's going somewhere else, and I think trying to get to Denver, I think it was. And they would not let her board because they gave her seat. Her and her daughter had to stay so they could give her seat, both of those seats, to a customer of size. And can you imagine? Late at night, you got no accommodations, no place to go, and they say, "We'll rebook you in the morning." You got to hang out at the airport all night long so they can accommodate this other person.
But she explained to me that Southwest policy is to accommodate a person of size, even if they did not purchase a ticket, and it is their right to kick a person out of the plane for the oversized person. I explained to her that I paid for the ticket. She said, we need to accommodate person of size. I said, but I purchased the ticket. And she said, well, it's the Southwest policy. And we were going back and forth.
We don't charge for extra seats. If a customer of size gets on that aircraft, we have to accommodate them with an extra seat of no charge.
I lost it. I've been dealing with it
She lost it, I bet.
for 8 hours now. So now I'm stuck in Baltimore without any accommodations with 2 teenagers. Help. Please tell me that I'm missing something. Please tell me it is not okay to kick a person out of the plane who paid for the ticket for a person of size who did not. Am I truly missing something?
No, you're not missing anything at all. You have every right to be irritated. Look, I'm sorry that's difficult if you're a person of size. TikTok influencers in the body positivity community are celebrating the Southwest Airlines policy for customers of size. The policy informs overweight passengers they can request a second seat for free or book additional seats in advance and get a refund afterwards. If it's determined that a second or third seat is needed, you'll be accommodated with a complimentary additional seat to protect the comfort and safety of everyone on board, except for the people who get bounced from the plane. Some people claim they've been kicked off, as you just heard this woman. It's no shock, of course, that the body positive influencers out there on TikTok think this is a great thing. But what about the rest of us? I don't think it's fair at all to say to a paying good customer, I'm sorry, you can't take the seat that we sold you because we've got this person who showed up at the last minute and they're $300 and change, and we've got to accommodate them. And I'm sorry, they have the right to request a second seat, and we have to give it to them. That's not right. And by the way, by giving them a second seat, you are de facto increasing the cost of everybody else. Nothing's for free. So they have to divide, when they give up a seat like that, it ends up costing everybody just a little bit more to fly on Southwest Airlines over time. And clearly, if it's an empty flight or a half-empty flight, and I've been on Southwest Airline flights when that was the case, it's not a problem. You accommodate them, you give them 2 seats, and you move people to another aisle. All right? That's fine. That's all good and fair. But let me ask you something. When is the last time you got on a plane and it was mostly empty? No. I mean, if you fly a lot, you know that planes, they book them up to the last seat. In fact, they're often at Southwest asking for people to volunteer to take a later flight because they've overbooked the flight. So here's what, there's an article here that I'm reading. This comes from the Washington Examiner telling me all this stuff. And there's an unfairness element, and I love this graph. What about all the other passengers who are unusually tall, for example, who would appreciate having 2 seats over which to sprawl out? Like somebody who's 6'4". I really, it's not the width of the seat, it's the shortness of the leg room is the one that gets me. I just can't believe that this is the approach. And I don't know what you do in a situation like this. This woman spent the night in Baltimore at the airport because Southwest didn't even offer her accommodations. What would you do, Chris? What would you do?
I would probably end up in jail. I mean, seriously, I would have lost it and did something that I would have regretted.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's awful. I mean, at the least they could have done, it's despicable one way or another, but the least they could have done is then say, hey, we're going to put you up for the night so you have a place to stay, and we'll get you home first.
I think they say to the customer of size, I'm sorry, we just don't have an extra seat, so you will have to book you on another flight.
Yep.
Why do other people have to give up their seats for the customer of size? Well, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense at all. And no official word of this. Southwest has not responded to requests for comment on this particular case. But I have a feeling this is what happens. Get ready because you could lose your seat to a customer of size. You've been forewarned. Happy travels. 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Now is the time to leave your pain in 2023 and get pain-free for 2024, or at least start the process toward that at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. You see, the 2023 special is in its final month, so you need to take this chance to get rid of your pain. Have you been diagnosed and getting treatment but still have chronic pain? Did you know that Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley have had a lot of success in finding the missing things that other people didn't pick up on in an MRI report? Then they can provide you with what they think is missed and recommend a thoughtful and customized treatment plan. Have you had your MRI report explained to you in detail? If you're a new patient, bring in your MRI report for analysis or let Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley do their own x-rays. Then you get first treatment for $23 with state-of-the-art therapy and equipment. That's $23 if you're a new patient. You are more than a number at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, and they care deeply about helping you get pain-free. It starts with a phone call, 615-246-5009. That's 615-246-5009. I can tell you that they help me a lot with some of the therapies they have there. They can help you as well. Learn more by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement, put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios, well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return's going to follow the other, we can figure out Is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
A hostage release update in Gaza, choice lanes in Tennessee, some news concerning Donald Trump's former chief of staff, and tornado recovery continuing in the mid-state. Those stories and more coming up. 5 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
You know, they're getting some news out of Israel that that they have found tunnels inside Gaza that are about 2.5 miles long and big enough for a car to drive through. Makeshift tunnels, and you know, when you look at them, they look like they're rather crudely built, but I mean, there's a lot of engineering, sort of, you know, makeshift engineering that apparently made these things usable, and this was one of the major reasons they were able to surprise the Israelis on October 7th, coming out of the tunnel and into Israel, and they were able to move a lot of manpower and people and equipment and weapons through these tunnels that were so large, as I said, you can drive a car through them. Something else. 57 minutes now, 58 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Big news from the folks over at DT McCall's. If you've been thinking about buying a gun safe, this is the time to act. And you know, just in time for Christmas, because, I mean, what dad wouldn't love to get a gun safe from DT McCall's? And they're sales tax free. It's hunting season, so be sure you're keeping your gun safe when you're not in the tree stand. DT McCall's is the largest Liberty Safe dealer in all of Tennessee, and the reason is they have free delivery and setup. You may not know it, but others charge $500 at least for delivery and setup of the big models, $300 for the smaller models. DT McCall & Sons delivers every safe free every time period, never a setup charge. Security is important these days, and gun safes can be used for valuables, cash, jewelry, important documents, wills, deeds, car titles, whatever you need to keep safe from theft or fire. So save some big bucks on your gun safe when you shop at DT McCall's. Just go to dtmccalls.com. That's dtmccalls.com for locations and information.
5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 38 degrees now and getting chillier as we head closer and closer into that evening. A breeze today, too. Very windy in Music City. Latest traffic report, weather forecast to let you know how this evening will round out and the morning will start. 5 minutes. The director of the CIA, Bill Burns, meeting leaders from Israel and Qatar and Poland to discuss ongoing negotiations to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas. Karen Travers has the latest from the administration.
The White House would not discuss the meeting CIA Director Bill Burns is having with officials from Israel and Qatar to discuss negotiations to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas. National Security spokesman John Kirby said another deal is not imminent, but this is a top priority for the administration.
We continue to work really hard to try to get another deal in place, which would, of course, be accompanied by another humanitarian pause. And hopefully some additional humanitarian assistance.
And this comes just days after the IDF confirmed 3 of their own people were killed in an accidental shooting during a raid to find Hamas militants. Choice lanes in Tennessee. The Tennessee Department of Transportation came out today announcing some places that have been suggested for choice lanes. And again, choice lanes or toll lanes basically just allow drivers to pay to avoid the traffic. Some of the proposed locations are downtown Nashville to Murfreesboro and I-65 from downtown Nashville to Spring Hill. Knoxville and Chattanooga have some locations proposed as well. Memphis does not meet the requirements for choice lanes. Lawmakers and TDOT will have the final say on whether these get approved, and that could take years to do. TDOT says that choice lanes in Texas have decreased congestion by 60 to 70%, and Channel 4 reports that a recent survey of 3,000 drivers said that I-24 in Nashville ranked 52 out of 100 on the most loathed highways in all of the United States. And this is a 10-year plan that would cost $15 billion. And got some more bad news for former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. He has lost his appeal to move his Georgia election interference case to federal court. Andy Field with details.
Mark Meadows' lawyers argue that since he was a federal officer serving as then-President Trump's chief of staff, only a federal court could hear the case. The appeals court rejecting the claim, saying the charged Georgia attempted election interference would be a criminal action that was not related to Meadows' official White House job. Barring any further appeals, Meadows will have to face trial in Georgia.
And tornado recovery continuing in Tennessee. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, has opened up a disaster recovery center at the Madison Public Library. It's on 610 Gallatin Pike South. FEMA's going to have several agencies there to help people with housing, insurance, financial assistance, and just helping survivors figure out whatever next steps they are at in the recovery process. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather coming up next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Yeah, it's that time. All the Christmas lights are on. I have the staff of hundreds going around turning on all the Christmas trees at Stately Wilson Manor.
Takes, what, 2 or 3 hours?
Yeah, it's a long process. That's right. But you got to admit, Chris, as I mentioned earlier, Chris and Mac and a lot of the guys who were in town this weekend were able to come by the house on Saturday. You know, we had a party earlier, a Christmas party over at the Stately Wilson Manor, and it was the night of the tornadoes, and so a lot of people had to sort of cancel out at the last moment. Because, well, you know, things like, well, we can't very well come and leave our kids with babysitters when there are tornadoes bouncing around. And I completely get that. Mm-hmm. And some people were out of town, but so we decided we would throw a little more intimate gathering for the folks that we work with. And Mac was there, and Chris was there, and Dan Mandis, and Matt Murphy, and the lovely wives, and our new friend Joan Jones came in, and it was nice to meet her. She's going to be filling in some in the days ahead. And I think but you got to admit, when you walk outside after it gets dark and you look back at the house, the 11 trees, which seems excessive. I understand that, but you know, but it's done with love. But when you look back at the house and there's a tree in every window, it's sort of cool, isn't it?
That's awesome.
Yeah, you got
really the house outline, the roof outlined with the lights and the trees in every window. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and so, you know, now, you know, we sort of like, well, when do we start taking it down? You know, I guess we'll wait till the day after Christmas before we do that.
Just close the curtains so nobody can see.
That's right. Just turn off the lights and close the curtains, and nobody will lower the blinds. Nobody will know that there are Christmas trees well into the spring, probably.
Yeah, you got time.
Yeah, and we'll get them out of there eventually. Yeah. But anyway, it was great having you guys over here. And again, I posted pictures. You know, we put all the wives wanted to, you know, get a picture of the guys together, you know, the voices that you hear on Super Talk 99.7. Chris and his wife could not make it; they were out of town, but everybody else was there, and so we all poised on the staircase. We have sort of a staircase and near the front door. It's sort of picturesque. So and Mac Maury was down low in front and center, and then the people, you know, were up behind him, and every single person who looked at the picture said the same thing initially. Mac Maury's not wearing any pants.
I had pants.
You know what's funny is that nobody, all the wives there looking, taking these photos.
Yeah, no one's like,
no one saw it, no one noticed it, no one said anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But
I didn't notice it.
Now Mac had on shorts. Now, I mean, again,
allegedly,
Mac. I'm not I'm not trying to hurt your feelings when I say this. No offense intended, but you know, it's a little weird to wear shorts in December. But nonetheless,
questionable decision. Yes.
Yeah, you know, it's a personal fashion decision, which you know I would never do. But one way or the other, he had on shorts. And, you know, come on, people. But every single, what were you playing, strip poker? Did Mac Maury lose? I mean, you know, all these comments. Everybody's a character.
All he had was a little red napkin covering his privates.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Perfectly placed.
But so in order to stop that, I recropped the picture and reloaded this posting.
And I didn't even notice that. That just shows how much attention I pay. I didn't even notice that you had redone the picture.
And then there was a picture with the wives. And that was great because, you know, all the lovely wives. And how about that Cabana wife, you know, looking pretty stylish there.
With her fuzzy, whatever that is.
One shoulder, you know, revealed and the other shoulder covered. I thought, wow, that's pretty good.
And of course, everyone has to comment through the post about how we all over, you know. Outkicked our
all
coverage or whatever.
That's right.
Punching up, yes.
And, you know, Mac Maury's.
We get it.
Mac Maury's girlfriend, again, did not show, making us wonder, is she real?
Does she really exist?
I don't know that she really exists. I mean, we've met her once, but, you know, not seen her. We don't see her very often.
Well, her rates are expensive, especially during the holidays, so it's just a lot, you know.
Oh, wait, stop. You're going to get in trouble. As a married man, let me say, stop right now and say you were only kidding.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah.
I swear.
You think it's expensive now? Just wait till you put the ring on.
That's right.
Yeah. You ain't seen nothing yet, buddy.
You ain't seen nothing yet, my friend. That's right. And so then that was Saturday night, and then we had to go to a party. Well, I didn't say have to. We went to a party over in Franklin. Our good friends, the Garretts, and it was a beautiful thing. Way out, they have a beautiful home, country home. And
horsey people, as you call them.
Yeah, they're horsey people. Yeah. And he's a well-known attorney in town. And so we were there, and Cabana wife. When I woke up on Sunday morning, she was sewing in the living room, and she had this green blouse, sort of a scoop neck blouse with full length sleeves, and she had I can only describe it as a green feather boa.
Okay.
And she was cutting it up, and she was sewing the boa onto the sleeves, so the end of the sleeves, so that it looked like it sort of
cuff.
Had like a cuff, but the cuffs were green feathers, very festive. But it looked like a green chicken exploded in our living room. There are green feathers everywhere. I'm still finding green feathers all over the house. And so when we went to the party, I see our guests, and we find a little place to. And if I ever lost her, I never had any problem finding her. I would just follow the trail of green feathers that was everywhere. They're still in my car. I mean, I got green feathers all over my car. But I will say, about a dozen people came up and said, "That's stunning," and it worked. I would have never guessed it, but it worked.
See, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's right.
The mess doesn't count.
That's right. So anyway, a very good weekend. It was great to have you guys come by.
Yeah.
Always have a good time. If you want to see the picture, well, you can't see the picture where Mac Morey looks like he's half naked, but you can see.
Thank God.
But you can see the recrop version at on my social media. On Facebook, I think it is at Brian Wilson 997. So you take a look. Leave a nice comment. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. That's what I say.
Yeah.
It's too late.
That eliminates a lot of people.
Yeah, it's too late. No, we know it's all in good fun. You guys are a laugh riot. You are, you listeners. Let's see real quick what I actually wanted to talk about something in this segment. I got carried away. The interstates. We now have a 10-year plan released by TDOT, which for the very first time addresses the possibility of choice lanes for Middle Tennessee. So from Fox 17. 10-year fiscally constrained project, which includes the state's first potential choice lane projects. Now, this is not going to happen tomorrow. It may take several years for this to happen. But the idea proposed by the governor, which I support, by the way, I think it's a good idea, is to offer, what you normally do is you hire a private company to build, maintain, and operate these choice lanes. So you don't put out a lot of tax dollars. But there's an additional lane that is built, let's say, each direction. And if you want to take that lane, you're not taking away any lanes that exist. This is an additional lane. And if you want to take that lane and maybe get home, 10 or 20 minutes earlier, then you pay a fee. If you don't, you stay in the main lane. But, I mean, the idea is that enough people will pay that they'll get home quicker, and it will ease up the traffic for everybody else, because, let's say 15, 20% of the people are taking the fast lanes. Well, then that means the traffic in the other lanes can move 15 to 20% faster, perhaps. And so that's the idea. And again, you're not taking away any lanes, and you have to, if you choose to take you will a modest fee. And by the way, it generally is done with dynamic pricing. And what that means is for example, the regular lanes are not very busy, then it's very cheap to take the fast lanes. If the lanes are very busy, the regular lanes are very busy, then you pay a little more. And it's sort of like, I don't know, what's another example where they use dynamic pricing? But it gives you some idea that that's going to cost you more when it's busy and less when it's not. That's the bottom line. The plan creates 93 projects throughout the state, according to Fox 17, and including the possibility of choice lanes in the Nashville region. Now, according to the plan, initial studies show that I-24 between Nashville and Murfreesboro would be the first one recommended, that they feel like they can do that the easiest and would have the greatest benefit to the greatest number of people who are in horrible traffic. And if you drive from the borough to Nashville or vice versa, you know that's ugly. And then the second one would be I-65, Nashville to Spring Hill, I guess both ways. By adding capacity to these heavily traveled roadways, operations are expected to improve in a major growth area. Choice lanes provide an option, and that's right, it's another option for motorists to bypass congestion, allowing motorists to maintain consistent travel times. The plan also includes widening I-24 in Montgomery County for safety enhancements and to address the congestion in that area. Now, the idea is, and by the way, some of the other places around the country would be considered, around the state would be considered, but not Memphis. Memphis, they say, they looked at the situation in Memphis and it just doesn't work or doesn't qualify in Memphis. Well, anyway, again, this is the study, the actual process of hiring somebody to build those lanes and to manage those lanes, as they've been doing in other places around the country, has not gotten there yet. So we're not talking about this happening tomorrow, not happening, in the next couple of years, but eventually that is the plan. It's in the TDOT plan for 10 years, hopefully be done in a few years. Meanwhile, they also want you to know, WSMV has this story. And interstates through Nashville are known for some of the worst traffic jams and potholes, but are they the worst in the U.S.? A survey of 3,000 drivers in October says 2 interstates that run through Middle Tennessee rank among the most loathed 100 highways in the U.S. This is the Gunther Volvo of Daytona Beach survey. I didn't know that the Gunther Volvo did a survey, but they do. Says that Interstate 24 and Interstate 40 are both loathed for the same reason. Loathed is a hard word to say. Traffic jams and congestion. I-24 ranked number 52 on the list of the top 100 bad roads in America, especially in the Chattanooga and Nashville areas. This highway can be congested, no kidding. I-40 ranked number 88 on the survey, known for drivers for traffic jams around Nashville and Memphis, especially during rush hours. Proposed choice lanes or toll lanes have been proposed, of course, to alleviate the problem. And there you go. So, look, if you're out there right now and you're hating life because you're stuck in traffic, I feel your pain. I do feel your pain. I did it for a lot of years in Washington, D.C., and I know it just robs you of your time. It robs you of your, you get home, you're in a rotten mood, and you have to take a couple of stiff drinks to get over the commute. I get it. I understand. But, I think some of these things will eventually ease it, but it's just not going to happen overnight. And Nashville is talking about a big, change to things in Davidson County with regard to roads, et cetera. And I would say but their idea is like more buses and that kind of stuff. And I would say to the people in Nashville, they're going to be asked to pay more money for some of these things that are coming along in Nashville and Davidson County. And I would say it's a waste of money if it's not a regional approach. It's got to be a regional approach because, putting a Band-Aid on this and putting a Band-Aid on that, it doesn't really solve the problem. And Davidson County needs to understand that whatever they do needs to be thought of in conjunction with whatever is being done regionally. That's the only way it gets better. But, a few more buses and making a few changes to one-way streets in downtown Nashville is not going to make things any better. But then again, the folks in Nashville really don't want you to drive down there anyway. Someday they may get their wish, and they'll be sorry that they wanted that. 21 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. The folks over at Busy Bee, it's getting cold right now. It was really cold this morning. And if you woke up and it was a little too cold in your house and you thought, well, my heater's not working, it's on the blink, why don't you call the number I would call, 615-775-7833. That's the number to Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. And they will buzz over to your house and they'll solve your problem. Listen, if you want to avoid having your system go out, perhaps some preventative maintenance is in order. And that's what the Beehive Club is all about. $99, that's where it starts. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your system, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling 775-7833. That's 615-775-7833. Online at busybeehvac.com.
A new border policy unlikely to be passed before the end of the year by the Senate. They're still working out some logistics there. A robbery at a Tennessee bar. Some news coming from the Pope may surprise some people. We'll tell you all about it 30 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. Mac Maury, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
It's time for a fan favorite, Mac Maury's wide world of sports. And now here is the host of your program. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. The one, the only, the incomparable Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. And he's got pants on.
And the crowd goes wild. They do.
Do the pants go all the way to the ankle, though?
Yep.
All right.
Just
want to be sure.
I swear.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I think I know what we're going to be talking about today, and it's not pleasant, but let's get it over with. We have to talk about all the things that happened this weekend with regard to the Titans.
Yes,
Mac,
yes, we do.
The floor is yours.
We do, and we're going to be displaying this in a more positive light because we're going to be looking at the future here today on Max Wide World of Sports. So, yes, yesterday was a 19-16 overtime loss, but what it means for the future, I think there's some more there. So, yesterday, up 16-3. I mean, the Titans had control of this game, and we talked about it last week on this segment, how the Texans, I mean, they were just ravaged within there. It was a laundry list of injuries. Their quarterback's out. Some of their best defensive players are out. They've got offensive linemen out. They got a wide receiver who's going to miss the rest of the season. I mean, the Texans, it was like last year's Texans team. A lot of their best players were just out. But the Titans had control of that game. It looked like exactly what I was saying. Like they were playing a lesser
like the
team.
last game.
Yes, exactly like the last game. In control of it and just seemingly couldn't get enough points at the end of the game. Now, this is 2 out of the last 3 games they've had overtime losses by a field goal. And frankly, this came after this was a game where if the Titans make a PAT that they missed, they probably win the game, and this doesn't go to overtime. That's now 2 games this season that were lost basically because of missed PATs, which I don't want to trash Nick Folk too much. Nick Folk's actually had a decent season, but it's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Came at a bad time. Those 2 points were huge. But the positivity that comes from this is Will Levis, while he was in the game, he did leave with an injury. Luckily, that is not severe. He will be okay. I don't know if
I was glad to hear that. I mean, what do we know about that?
It's some sort of leg injury. I'll have to look more into it right now, but I've only shortly read about it. But it's a sprained ankle, and there were worries that they could have some ligament damage, could need surgery. It doesn't look like that's all gonna be avoided. So Will Levis will be okay, and he may be able to play this season. Now, if they want to do that, if they want to risk any of that, that's a different question. But you saw Will Levis have some really smart plays. There were some throws that maybe could have been rethought, but again, as a rookie gunslinger, you're going to expect that. You had Tajay Spears with some good catches. DeAndre Hopkins going out there and being productive as always. Even if he's a decoy, even if he's not catching a lot of passes, he's drawing attention so others can produce. Treylon Burks, a second-year wide receiver, had one of his best days. Building for the future is what the Titans want to do. And so looking good for 45, 50 minutes in a football game and maybe coming out on the bottom, and I know fans are going to hate saying this, is actually maybe a good thing because you saw a lot of really good positives that you can build on in the future, and you lost, and you maybe got yourself a better draft pick. Looking at
I was wondering about it. Was this a case of suck to luck?
Yes.
Suck for luck, they call it.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you look at the tankathon here, draft picks, you've got Chicago, New England, and Arizona, who are pretty much owning the top 3 picks at 2-12 and 3-11, respectively, those 3 teams. And then you get Washington at 4-10 with that 4th pick. And then from 5 to pick number 9 right now, those teams are all 5-9, the Titans being at that 9th pick at 5-9. With 3 remaining games, lose 2 or 3 of those 3 games, you're talking about potentially a top 5 pick. I mean, in a loaded, top-heavy, but loaded NFL draft.
Okay. But I have questions.
Okay.
So if they decide to give Levis some time to recover and not to rush him back too soon, which I think it would be a smart move, quite frankly.
Agreed.
Who steps in? Tannehill?
Be Ryan Tannehill.
And
yes.
Is Tannehill going to use this as an opportunity to reclaim the position?
He's going to use this as an opportunity to hopefully reclaim or claim a position on another team.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think that ship has sailed.
To get a contract, whether to be a starter to maybe battle for a starting position or be the for sure backup for another franchise. But yeah, he's looking elsewhere. I don't see him in a Titans uniform next season.
Yeah. Really? Okay.
Yeah, and that's probably, even if they were to go 3-0 and he wins those games, it'd be like, awesome, Tannehill, thanks for sending us out. You got us a worse draft pick. We really appreciate it. See you later. It would be one of those things. Thanks for everything.
Yeah,
and then Will Levis would take control. I think that's firmly where the franchise is set right now, and that's the direction.
And our backup quarterback in a Levis led Titan team.
That's a good question. Right now, it'd be Malik.
Because the way the games go these days,
you're exactly right.
Your second string quarterback is gonna be called into service at some point during a season.
And if it's even a game, if it's even a quarter, it could be massive for the implications of your season. And you're right, that's going to be a position that they're going to need to address. No doubt.
And so you think maybe that's what they'll be looking for in the draft?
That's probably a free agency type pick. Maybe, something like that. No, draft. I mean, maybe late on the draft, but no, offensive line.
Absolutely,
Please,
I agree.
For the Titans.
1,000%, I agree. All right, time to take off the sports hat, put on the news hat. It's time for the news on Super Talk 99.7.
5:31, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 37 degrees, a nice windy day in Music City. Full weather forecast, latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. And it now appears unlikely that an agreement will be reached by the end of the year on changes to border policy as a part of a package that also funds aid to Israel and Ukraine. Here's Stephen Portnoy.
While negotiators appear aligned on the need to curb asylum claims, sticking points remain. The GOP is pushing for new limits on humanitarian parole authority, which has been used over the decades to admit refugees from Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Ukraine. Republicans say it's also been used too much by this administration on the southern border.
And any framework deal that comes out of the talks would have to be crafted into legislative text, and Senate Republicans say they'll want time to study all that. A robbery in Tennessee, officials trying to identify a man who allegedly stole thousands of dollars from Uptown. It's an arcade bar in Nashville. The man allegedly tied up an employee outside of the bar Sunday morning and demanded that he take him to the business safe. The thief cut multiple wires from the video surveillance system before running away. And police said this robber is 25 to 35-year-old, and he's a man. He was wearing all black at the time. And the witnesses, the man who was tied up, that employee, said that he was speaking with a New York or New Jersey accent. And a prominent LGBTQ activist group is praising the Pope for updating the Catholic Church's policy on blessing of the faithful, including same-sex couples. Derek Dennis.
GLAAD, the world's largest lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer advocacy organization, is celebrating Pope Francis and his expanded definition of blessing to include same-sex couples. A new church document approves allowing priests to bless same-sex couples and insists that people seeking God's love and mercy should not be subject to, quote, an exhaustive moral analysis to receive it. GLAAD releasing a statement saying the Pope accurately recognizes that LGBTQ people and our relationships are worthy of the same affirmation and support in the church.
And that is the latest news, weather, traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
So how are you faring in the rough and tumble market? You know, up days, down days, hard to know exactly what's going to be coming next. It can be a little scary. The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand this. But here's the thing. Beacon has a plan to assess where you are and then help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. They'll give you their best advice. You have nothing to lose except for the potential worry that you have. So get started today by calling this number, 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, that number, you might want to write it down, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. And you can learn more by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 39 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Hey, thank you for listening to The Drive. We're getting it done here for you on this Monday, December 18th. Just 6 shopping days until Christmas. Six. I did the math. Yeah, that's right. 6. And then 28 days until Iowa. What's that? What's that I hear? I hear those sleigh bells ringing.
Santa?
Ting, ting,
Is it Santa?
Yeah. That's really irritating. But anyway, it is that you got to get your Christmas shopping done. I'm starting soon.
So you're thinking about it right now, and that's important that you're thinking about it. You still got time to get it done to actually do the shopping.
Yeah. Cabana wife allowed me to purchase a gift for myself this year.
She allowed you to purchase a gift for yourself, okay?
Yes, I mean, she recommended it today. I was telling her about something that I found on the internet. Let's just put it this way. It's a guitar.
Of course.
That was owned and is owned currently. And until tomorrow, it will be owned. But tomorrow it'll be mine. Owned by a very well-known guitarist in this town.
Is it Vince?
Nope. No. Vince doesn't ever sell guitars. He only buys them. I'm surprised he didn't try to buy this one. Yeah, I'm super pumped.
Let's be honest, though. You were going to buy it whether she can encourage you to or not, right?
No, I had decided not to. And she said, you know what? You've worked hard this year. Go ahead. She gave me her blessing, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I really wanted to do it, I probably would have done it anyway. But I mean, I'd sort of decided, I would love to have that guitar. And I'll tell you more about it tomorrow when it's in my possession.
I bet when she said go ahead, you've never moved faster in your whole life.
No, I really thought about it for a while.
Did you? Right.
Yeah. And so I responded. I found this on Facebook, and so I responded to that person. And that person immediately called me. And so I had to, not only do I get to have, this guitar, hopefully. I mean, I've already paid for it, so it's mine, really. Essentially, everything's over but the transfer. And I'm going to get that tomorrow. And so this person called me. So not only do I get the guitar, I get to have had a conversation with somebody that I deeply admire.
That's pretty cool.
And I'll meet him tomorrow when I get the guitar.
Extra nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm talking a session person. Somebody who plays with a very well-known mega star in this town.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm telling you, if you were to ask people in town who really know how to play guitar, who are the top 5 guys, this guy's one of the top 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
No doubt.
Can't wait to hear more.
It's fabulous. That's a hint.
You're dropping hints, huh?
I'm dropping a hint.
All right.
It's fabulous.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, I think you might. So I'm really excited. Let's see. Here's what I want to talk about: the numbers in the upcoming election, which, as I said, is 28 days away. We start the process in Iowa in 28 days. And so the president of the United States, he's out over the weekend, and some poor producer has been tasked with the job of shouting at him, which I did a little bit of that. I always tried to mimic the voice of the late, not late, he's still around, Sam Donaldson. He's an old friend of mine, Sam Donaldson. Mr. President! Mr. President! You yell it out real loud, and sometimes they'll turn around, sometimes they ignore you. He turned around this time, and the question was, how come you're losing in the polls?
Mr. President, why are you losing to Trump in the polls?
Now, he said, you're looking at the wrong polls, but no, honestly, it's hard to find any poll where Trump is not beating Biden. Biden is behind in virtually everybody. You could look through 100 polls, you might find 1 or 2 that has Biden in the lead, but there aren't many out there. And by the way, seconds after that question was asked and answered by the president, there was a car crash. You can actually hear the car crash on the tape. Here we go. Wow, that's it right there. I mean, that would sound like in a bowling alley or something. And then you hear the Secret Service running over because somebody actually ran into one of the Secret Service vehicles there The motorcade was not moving, and the Secret Service runs over with guns drawn. And there's pictures of this poor guy in his car with his hands up, like, put your hands up where we can see them, because the Secret Service was taken. They rushed the president into his vehicle and protected him. Turns out it was just some bonehead who was, I guess, not looking at what they were doing and ran into the motorcade. A lot of blinking lights, a lot of activity, probably looking around to see what's going on. Next thing you know, he ran into one of the Secret Service cars. Probably not his best day. So here it is again, from the time the president answers to the end of it, just so you can sort of hear how it went. You hear him yelling, no, hands up. Well, anyway, that's what happened. But let's get back to what he said. The wrong polls. Well, the president, I guess the old saying about denial is not just a river in Egypt. He's in denial if he believes that, that the situation is not really bleak for him right now. It is. It's incredibly bleak. Let me just run through the latest numbers. Okay, and I have, let's see, I'll pull this up over here so I can see all the numbers. There we go. Right now, if you look at the latest polls that just came out, one of the things you want to look at is a president's disapproval rating. Rasmussen Reports has Biden's disapproval rating, the number of people who disapprove of the job he's doing as president, 55% disapprove. Monmouth comes in at a whopping 60% of all voters who were surveyed by Monmouth say that they disapprove of the job that Joe Biden is doing as president. Fox News asked the same question in a very wide-ranging poll, and they split the difference. They came in at 57. So, somewhere between 55 and 60% of people who are surveyed in America disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing. More on that in a moment. The Fox News general election poll has Trump beating Biden nationwide by 4. And they also did that's a two-way matchup. Trump versus Biden. Trump wins by 4. They did the 5-way with, Stein and Kennedy and West added to the mix. And Trump still wins by 4 in those particular polls. And that's Fox News again. And let's look about Iowa. CBS News says that Trump will win the GOP nomination in Iowa by 36 points. Nobody's even close. But there's an interesting development in New Hampshire. Trump only leads Nikki Haley by 15 points. Now, that's still a lot of points. Don't get me wrong. That's still a heavy lift, but it's not where it has been. For some reason in New Hampshire, Haley is coming in at only 15 points behind Trump, number 2. And so that's Haley's got a little momentum going. I don't see how it's ever going to be enough, but watch that space. Watch Nikki Haley. I don't know what's going on there. Ron DeSantis seems to be, if you look at the national numbers, DeSantis is, I'll say Trump 69 in Fox News. This is the nationwide matchup again for the nomination. Trump 69, DeSantis 12, Haley 9. Ramaswamy 5, Christie 2, Hutchison 1, Burgum not registering. That means that, according to the Fox News poll, for the Republican nomination, on average, nationwide, Trump leads by 57 points. That's amazing. That's truly amazing. Here's a take on that from Breitbart. Former President Donald Trump is dominating the Republican primary polls with 69% support, up 7 points from November, according to Fox News. Fewer than 1/3 of Republican primary voters are backing all of Trump's rivals combined. You add everybody up, and it's still only less than 1/3. 12% going to Ron DeSantis, 9% to Nikki Haley, 5% to businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, 2% for former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, 1% for Asa Hutchison. Every Trump opponent besides Hutchison has lost support within the last month, and Hutchison didn't have any to lose, really. Trump is also doing well in the hypothetical matchup, as I mentioned, beating Joe Biden in the hypothetical matchup nationwide by 4 points. This is very consistent with other polls. Reuters Ipsos found Trump beating Biden by 2 points. A recent Messenger Harris poll gave him a 7-point lead. Again, there's this weird thing that if you say hypothetically, if Nikki Haley were to become the nominee and she were to run against Biden, she has better numbers than Trump, but she's not going to get the nomination the way it stands. So it's sort of like, okay, that's interesting, but I don't know that it's ever going to come to fruition. But I will say, you should watch Nikki Haley. Something's going on there. People are lining up behind her, and she's got great funding. A lot more funding than DeSantis has right now. Getting back to Joe Biden, a lot of people are beginning to whisper that he doesn't have what it takes. And here's a story from Town Hall, which quotes a big story that was done by the Wall Street Journal this weekend. Like the rest of the country, former President Obama doubts whether President Joe Biden will secure another term in the White House. According to a report by Ann Linsky in the Wall Street Journal, Obama fears Biden will lose the 2024 election as various crises mount against the president. The report expressed uncertainty that Biden will be able to beat former President Trump, given the Republican is dominating in the polls. Now, they say this is who is this person? It's an anonymous source. It might well be Obama. It may be somebody like, I don't know, Axelrod. It could be somebody else, but I think what it is probably likely to be is this is Obama giving his permission for somebody to go out there and speak as if they are, quote unquote, familiar with Obama's thinking. So this is, again, turning the screws. What's going on with Obama? You know what? I mean, what's going on with Biden? I'll tell you, Shannon Bream may have something in this, another little element from the Fox News poll. Listen to this.
When it comes to whether the president was involved in Hunter's business or did something related to it, 38% told us they think he did something illegal. This is the president. 27% say something unethical. So that's 65% of Americans who think something shady went on there with regard to the president and Hunter's business. And now we have a flip on impeachment. There are now more Americans who tell us they believe it's a legitimate inquiry than a bogus inquiry. That has flipped since we last polled this in September.
So, there are a lot of people out there who think that what Biden did, 2/3 of Americans now believe he did something either illegal or unethical. Pretty interesting. 52 minutes now past the hour, 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement. Put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital of the various things that you own in your investment portfolio. It sounds scary, it sounds really detailed, but here's the idea. Is if we look at various asset classes like large stocks and small stocks and large value and bonds and so on and so forth, we know the expected return or the cost that these entities have to pay to use your money. So we can come up with an expected return of the portfolio. We can also come up with what's called standard deviation, or how much that portfolio return may deviate from the expected return. Now that's a whole other video, but what I want to do is show you how we use this. If I look at a financial plan and I say, well, you got this area, this area, this area, what I can do is I can say, well, based on when you want to retire, this is how much income you can take, and here's the likelihood of being able to have this income survive throughout your entire life. And the way it works is this. If I take a portfolio and I say, there's the expected return, I can look at history and say, well, the way your portfolio is designed, how might your one-year returns vary from the expected return, the long-term expected return? Well, what we know from academic research is that portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now, it's too complicated, portfolios actually close in an expected return, but we don't know what the short-term returns are going to be. So what we do is we project out and say, well, what if the return that happened in 1936 is followed by the return that happened in 1975, which is followed by the return in 1995, or what if it's reversed? What if they happen in different orders? And we can do 1,000 iterations, different variations on when those and how those returns may come in. And what that does is, because we can't predict the future, what return is going to follow the other, we can figure out, is it likely that we are going to be able to take the income that we need throughout retirement from this portfolio? And if not, how can we rearrange the furniture or the portfolio to give us a higher likelihood of success? And we look at life expectancies, we look at a lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting from the financial planning community. If you want to know more, go to paulwinkler.com, set up a free 15-minute phone call, paulwinkler.com, and come in and find out more about what we do.
6:01, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 36 degrees right now in Music City. Got the latest forecast and a traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. The House already home for the holidays. The Senate negotiators still working on a combination deal that would fund Ukraine and Israel, along with improving U.S. southern border security. Andy Field tells us it looks unlikely they'd pass any of that before the new year.
The Senate working through the weekend negotiating tougher border restrictions. Democratic leader Chuck Schumer.
While the job is not finished, I'm confident we're headed in the right direction.
Republican Senator Mitch McConnell less optimistic.
Getting this agreement right and producing legislative text is going to require some time.
The president says money for Ukraine will run out by the end of this month.
Here in Tennessee, an exclusive Tennessee and Siena College poll has found 9% of respondents who identified themselves as Democrats said they would support Trump. This survey finds 49% of respondents would like Trump to be the next president of the United States, while 20% said they would like Biden to remain in office for 4 more years. The poll surveyed a cross-section of Tennesseans, both registered and non-registered voters. Choice lanes in Tennessee. The Tennessee Department of Transportation came out today announcing places that have been suggested for choice lanes. Channel 4's Marissa Sulik has some more information.
This is part of the state's multi-billion-dollar 10-year transportation plan. Drivers in Nashville, Knoxville, and Chattanooga may see these signs that show how much it will cost to take a choice lane. The prices will depend on congestion. States like Texas, Florida, and Georgia have implemented similar lanes, have seen more drivers and a reduction in travel times. TDOT says they would not take away lanes of traffic. They would only add the optional lanes. It will still be years before Tennesseans may have this choice. The state hopes to sign a contract with the private partner by 2026.
And choice lanes or toll lanes basically just allow drivers to pay to avoid traffic. Some of the proposed locations so far are downtown Nashville to Murfreesboro and I-65 from downtown Nashville to Spring Hill. Some crime in Tennessee. Metro Police investigating a fatal crash. It happened yesterday morning, South Nashville. It began with 2 people in a Nissan Sentra. They were speeding. They lost control at an intersection, Polk Avenue off of Nolensville Pikes, where it happened. The car hit a utility pole, caught fire. Both people died in the collision. No identities have been released, but officials believe they were 2 men from Cookeville. And an iconic American company is being sold. Daria Albinger with the story.
U.S. Steel was one of the companies that moved America from an agricultural economy to an industrial one. At one time, it was the world's largest steel producer and the world's largest corporation, and there wouldn't be a Pittsburgh Steelers without it. Now, U.S. Steel is being sold to a Japanese competitor, Nippon Steel. The deal, valued at just over $14 billion, will expand Nippon's production in the U.S. and abroad, but it will retain the U.S. Steel name and headquarters in Pittsburgh.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good evening. 8 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock, the fourth and final hour of this drive for Monday, December 18th. And it is cold outside. What do you got? I got 35 degrees here in not very bucolic Watertown.
Yeah, 39 still downtown.
Yeah, 35. We're just a few degrees above freezing here. And I didn't bring a jacket, so I'm gonna my long commute back to the house is gonna be hurried.
That's tough, isn't it?
That's tough. That's right. You know, I have mixed emotions about college education these days. I am someone who basically got from West Texas all the way to the nation's capital as a reporter on nothing more than a high school education. And the reason that I didn't get a college education, my parents sent my sister to college. She had good grades, and I did not. And I was, honestly, high school to me was so boring, and I just couldn't bring myself to stay focused. I had a little bit of ADHD. I was an ADD student. I either made an A or I made a D, and just enough to get by. I'm serious about that, though, because if a subject interested me and I had a good teacher who knew how to make it interesting, I would get an A in the class. It was not a matter of intellect. It was a matter of just struggling to stay focused as a young man. And if it wasn't very interesting or I found the topic boring, then I got a D, just enough to squeak by. So it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I went to college, and I have a master's degree in print journalism, which is not really the thing that I've spent most of my time doing. I've been mostly broadcast journalism or broadcasting, and so I got a master's degree in print journalism, and I graduated as a man in my 40s with a basically I think it was a 3.85 average. Graduated, as they say, with distinction. I was very proud of that. But I didn't really need it to get where I was, but it was nice to have. It was just for me that I did that because I felt like I needed to prove to myself that I could get that degree and that and by the way, I paid for it. And one of the great things that I loved doing was I took my final report card and had it laminated, and I gave it to my mom with magnets attached to it so she could put it on the refrigerator, because she could never do that with one of my high school report cards. So she,
better late than never, right?
Better late than never, Mom. I came through in the end. And she had it proudly posted on her refrigerator. I thought that was great. But I look at it and I say, well, do you really need a college education? Well, clearly, if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be an engineer, I don't want people building planes, and doing that kind of stuff if they don't have the right kind of background and education. I don't want people operating on me, if they don't have the right kind of education. So, clearly, lawyers probably, yeah, you need to, there are some people who get their, to practice law without going to law school, but they're very few and far between. And I think there are places where, yeah, you definitely need that college education. But right now, you can make a good living and not have a college education. And I think we need to say to not all kids really probably need to go to college. And they can do really well. I'm going to read this story that I just found. This is on CNBC. The job market may be cooling, but wage growth is hot for jobs in customer service, the skilled trades, and freelance roles, according to a new pay scale report. The analysis takes a look at the hottest jobs of 2023, where workers leverage bigger paychecks, based employee reported data for more than 770,000 U.S. workers. Wages for the top 10 in-demand jobs for the year experienced double-digit growth, somewhere between 18 and 24%, while average growth overall was up only 5.4% in the same time period. The pay for the top 5 most in-demand jobs was up over 20%. So, if you can find one of these jobs and you can fulfill one of these jobs, you're going to have a chance of making some money right now. Let's just go through the list. This is 1 through 10. Well, I'll start 10. General manager. Wage growth, $70,700 is the median annual pay for a general manager. A roofer. Wage growth has grown in the last year 19% for good qualified roofers. Average annual pay for a roofer, $51,700. A fitness coach, 19% wage growth in the last year. The annual median pay, $51,100. If you have abilities as an artist, maybe you could become an animator. 19% wage growth, $71,400 median annual pay. I could have done this. I could have been an audiovisual technician. 20% wage growth, $57,100 median annual pay. To be a job coach, 21% wage growth. You help people find jobs, but do you need a college education for that? No. $46,600 median annual pay. Automotive body repairer, 21% wage growth in the last year, $52,100 median annual pay. Yeah, and now if you are a master plumber, you have seen your wages go up in the last year roughly 21%. The annual median annual pay, $82,700 for master plumbers. Hairstylist up 22%, $34,300. An assistant manager of customer service up 24%, $44,200 median annual pay. Several top jobs they point out involve high turnover customer service roles, so employers have had to pay up to recruit and retain employees. Skilled managers are essential as business deals with the release of pent-up demand for goods and services from the pandemic years. So in a business where you're the general manager or the assistant manager, you can do okay. Repairs from skilled trade workers like plumbers, auto workers, and roofers are in demand as ever. And it's hard to find young people to replace aging practitioners in these fields. But none of these, I'm looking at, I don't think any of these jobs require you to have a college degree. You know, I've told this story before. I had this conversation with my daughter when she was in, junior high and high school, and I would ask her the question, what do you want to become? And she said, I think I want to become an oceanographer. And I said, what you mean? You want to study the oceans? And yeah, I want to study the fish and the animals and the whales and the dolphins in the ocean. I said, okay, well, why don't we look up what that job would pay?
And be a marine biologist.
Yeah, a marine biologist, I think is the better term. She wanted to be a marine biologist, not an oceanographer. That's different. She meant marine biologist. I said, okay, let's look that up. We went to the Woods Hole Institute, which is in Boston. It's the preeminent place where they study things like that. And we found out that to work at the Woods Hole Institute, you had to have a master's degree or a doctorate. And your starting pay would be around $40,000 a year. Wow. Yeah. I mean, to get a master's is 6 years. To get a doctorate is 8 years. And you come out and you get, and it may be a great job, and it may be the thing that you love more than anything in the world. But I mean, how long does it take you to pay back that college degree at $40,000 a year? I mean, I'm sure you get raises over the time, and that was many years ago. Maybe it's higher now. But I mean, a marine biologist, you got to have a college degree for that. And I'm just not sure you get the money back. And so many people say, well, go out there and follow your dream. And I say, no, don't follow your dream. Not that you can't have dreams. It's just that if your dream is, underwater basket weaving, then don't get a degree in underwater basket weaving. Go out there and get a job that pays you a decent wage, and then in your spare time, do all the underwater basket weaving you want to do. I mean, honestly, find a job that's going to pay you a living wage, and then take on the thing that you love as a hobby, as a side thing, or as something that you can. And then maybe if that becomes profitable for you, or you can see a pathway to profitability for that, then maybe you can make the transition at some point. But I mean, I don't understand all these people who send their kids off to college and have them study drama. How many people go through, get a drama degree who never are going to make it? I mean, what is it? 0.1% of the people in that industry hit it big. And, and the rest of you, are doing, little tiny roles. They're going from job to be extras. I mean, honestly, many people can't make a living. And, well, you may think your kid is, has a great talent, but, maybe you're just a little biased about that. Maybe the kid's just, has a little talent. I don't need to be rude about it. So, I told her, my daughter at the time, I said, look, I'm not going to say no, but what I would say to you is that you need to think about when you come out of college, you're going to need to make a living. And although $40,000 sounds like a lot of money when you're in high school, trust me, it's not a lot of money if you have to live in a place that's expensive, like Boston. And so I said, think about that. And it was then she decided she was going to become an architectural engineer. And next year she will graduate. The last time I double checked on it, she's pulling a 4.0.
Wow.
I know.
That's not too bad.
That's not too bad. That's not shabby. That's pretty good, because engineering and, clearly my daughter, I've said before, is adopted, which means that she did not get my math gene. Thank God. Because you need math in that kind of stuff.
Probably need it. Yeah.
Yeah. You need math for sure. God bless her. She's going to do well. And I'm glad that she made that decision on her own with a little guidance from Dad, perhaps. But I don't think that a lot of people, if you're building buildings, you want to make sure they stand up and they don't fall apart, okay? Maybe you need a college degree, and maybe you need to know a lot about math, and so maybe you do need to go to college. But I'm not sure that everybody needs to go. And I think that, as you are looking at your kid, you need to be really clear-eyed about, what they're going to get out of the college degree that they're seeking. And so many people say, well, I want my kid to follow their dream. Well, okay. That's why they're going to be in your basement when they graduate, because they followed their dream and now they can't get a job. So you need to think about that. But I think this is interesting that, really the people, if you have a service job or a skilled laborer job, you can do all right. You can make a good living. I can tell you that when I started in radio, I made $400 a month. It took a long time to make a good living in radio and then television. I didn't really make decent money until I was in D.C. for about 4 years before I made really, decent money. So you have to pay your dues, and I tell you, it's a tough thing. All right, so enough of that. Just, think it over. If you got a kid right now, think about whether or not it makes sense to send that kid to a trade school and learn a trade where they're going to come out and they're going to make a livable wage, or whether it makes sense to send them on to college and, spend a lot of money. Just make sure if you're spending a lot of money that there's going to be a return on that investment. Is what I would say. I don't know. It's 21 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. If you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltz Co., two great guys you need to talk to. They do exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair price. That's what they're all about. And they can build your new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltz Co. difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is key. What they do is they combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So go to their website, stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com. And tell them your friend and radio buddy told you to call, and they'll give you an estimate on the phone, 615-622-5992. Stoltz Co., where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. Go to stoltzco.com and see some of the outstanding examples. That's stoltzco.com. All right, thank you, Mac Maury. We'll look forward to the news here in just a few moments. Yeah. Well, let's see what we got here. Is that the Charlie Brown thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the name of that trio? I forget. I always forget the name
Vince
of it.
Guaraldi, I think.
That's right, the
Giraldi.
Vince Guaraldi trio. And you know, when they did the music for the Charlie Brown Christmas special, and that's where this comes from, CBS hated it. They watched it the first time, and they all, when the thing ran through and they had this music in there, said, we don't understand the jazz music. We don't understand any of this. This is a horrible, horrible animated product. Let's run it once, and then we won't ever run it again, just because we have to do it because it's sponsored by Coke. But they were never going to run it again. And they completely missed the charm of the thing.
Everyone let them know, I would assume, right? They loved it.
Yeah, it became, CBS ran it every Christmas, and then I don't know who has it now, but somebody owns the rights to it.
One of those streaming services probably has it.
Yeah, I tell you, it works. Charles Schultz. And that was back in the day when, Charlie Brown and Snoopy, man, that was big stuff. Everybody was all about Charlie Brown.
Let's see, where can I watch Charlie Brown Christmas? It's only available on Apple TV Plus.
Well, there you go. It's still out there, though. Yeah. All right, I want to, bring you this story because remember, we always tell you that we here on this show believe that the truth is out there. So I'm looking at this interview with Tucker Carlson, who started his own streaming service, his own media company, the Tucker Carlson Network, TCN. And he's doing an interview with some folks about unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs, UFOs is what we used to call them. And he started alluding to stuff with the host of this program that I had never heard before. And I don't know quite what he's thinking about, but I thought I'd share it with you because it was so interesting. And he says, I haven't confirmed it. I don't want to go forward and give you all the details, but enough of what he'd sort of teased was very tantalizing and a bit dark and scary. Here is from that interview, Tucker Carlson talking about his dark UFO theories that he's hearing about. He says it comes from people who he believes have the story right.
They've known clearly, I mean, this is, I think, established, and I feel comfortable saying this as fact. The U.S. government, I mean, these are real, whatever they are. They're not human. And the government has known that for a long time, possibly going back to the 1930s at least. And, of course, there's tons of evidence in the written record, in the physical record, in paintings, and in literature, that people have been seeing and interacting with these things for a long time. So we know that. But the justification one often hears is, well, the government, various presidents who have been read in, not all have been, haven't wanted to disclose this because it would scare people. And I've always thought that's bullshit. You're hiding a crime.
Sorry about that.
By the way, in my opinion. But I do think there's a sense in which that's not totally crazy. Like, there is some stuff, if it's true, and I'm kind of thinking it may be true, that's so radical that, yeah, well, as we both said, we don't want to tell the people we love most about it because, like, why would you, disturb someone like that? So I kind of get that. I hate to admit it. I'm not arguing for hiding things. I believe in the truth and I believe in disclosure, but I understand the impulse. Like, holy smokes, this is heavy. You know what I mean?
And the government's involvement in it makes it even heavier because then you realize the complicity.
Exactly.
Of it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. So they apparently know what they're talking about. I couldn't figure it out. But he said there's a dark and sort of spiritual, element to all this. That he says that, that most people are just not ready to hear. And he said he hadn't even shared it with his wife because he feels it's too dark and too troubling to discuss. I have no idea what he's talking about. But if next time I go to Washington, I got to track Tucker down because Tucker, you and I got to have a conversation about what this is all about. I mean, wow. It just boggles the mind, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 31 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Time for the news. You know, there are a lot of diagnoses out there and a pill for everything, but not all diagnoses are accurate, and not all pills actually work to help you out. Listen, you get a diagnosis for European auto repair. You might want to think about getting a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, go to Eurofix. It could save your vehicle's life and could actually save you a ton of money. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. There are no high-pressure sales tactics, and at Eurofix, you get a 3-year, nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. At Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. They have locations in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and their newest place is over in Mount Juliet. Just call this number, 844-EUROFIX, that's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you. It is 38 minutes now past the hour at 6 o'clock. We're here for another 22 minutes, and we headed over to the great one, Mark Levin. So hang on, everybody. We're gonna cover a lot of territory between now and then. With regard to the Biden investigation, the investigation into Biden Incorporated, Hunter Biden, James Biden, and whether or not, there was money that was funneled to now President, then Vice President Joe Biden. And it's beginning to look a lot like, there was. And the other thing that's happening is that the Washington Post came out this weekend with a 4,000 word report. Now, I'm telling you something. When you put together a 4,000 word article, I'm telling you, when I was working on my master's degree in print journalism, I got told, write 1,000 words. It was the hardest thing I ever did because broadcasters don't write long, they write short. And 1,000 words and 2,500 words, that was a lot. 4,000 words is a long article. And that means that you had several people working on it, and they've worked on it for a long time. This is one of those lengthy pieces, right? And what it does is it dredges up a lot of stuff that, as Andrew McCarthy said, it's stuff that we sort of vaguely knew, but it's interesting now in the light of the things that are coming out as part of the Biden investigation by the House Oversight Committee. They are it's beginning to look like, wow, that's interesting. This has been going on for a while. It has to do with CEFC, which is a company that close ties to the Communist Party of China. And it was sort of masquerading, as Andrew McCarthy says, as an energy conglomerate, but was really part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. And they had dealings with the Bidens that went back to 2015 while Joe Biden was vice president. And the information that's come out is that they started to trade on the Biden name while he was vice president. And when he got out of office, there was a big $3 million payment. Was that payment for services previously rendered? And now that he's out, you can pay him when nobody's looking? I don't know. And $1 million of that went to the Bidens. And then they discussed the deal that was going to involve the Biden family, not just Hunter. So he says the fact that this has come out, it may be part of the sort of continued effort by those on the left to pressure Joe Biden into stepping down as the nominee, not running for re-election, which, I mean, the numbers don't look very good, but he seems to still be in it. But, more and more, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal, which is said to quote the thinking of Barack Obama, who said he's really worried about it. All of this stuff ratcheting up. And then comes this article in the Wall Street Journal and this article in the Washington Post, the big organs that are read in Washington, D.C. Andrew McCarthy talked about this may be a way to sort of pressure Biden into making a decision that he doesn't want to run because, he just thinks it's going to get ugly.
This is a 4,000-word report, which means they spent weeks on it. They could have dropped it at any time, and it dredges up stuff that's been kind of vaguely known for years, and that Joe Biden must have thought that he had, survived that long ago. And here it is again, right at a time when a lot of top Democrats are saying, maybe time for him to get out.
Yep, I don't know. Maybe that's part of what it is. But one way or the other, it's nothing out there in this Washington Post report would you say, wow, there's the smoking gun. But certainly, when you start talking about the Washington Post applying pressure and actually covering this story in a way they have not covered it before, it would seem that the long knives are out for Joe Biden, that Democrats are now going to up the pressure to try to get our sitting president to make the decision that he doesn't want to run for re-election. And I read very interesting, I think it's very interesting, the things that were said to have come from Barack Obama. Now, the quote may have actually come from Barack Obama because the source is anonymous, but it's said to be, a lot of times, this is a game that they play. Yeah, I want to get out there and I want to say something, but I don't want it to sound like it's coming directly from me. So the reporter agrees to report whatever the source has to say, and then they characterize it as someone who is familiar with Obama's thinking. A source, an anonymous source who is familiar with Obama's thinking. Well, you know who's really familiar with Obama's thinking? Obama. I wouldn't be surprised if this didn't come directly from Barack Obama, but he wanted to cover it up a little bit. And the reporter probably went along with it. Maybe it's Michelle. Maybe it's David Axelrod. David Axelrod's been out there saying things. But somebody who talked to Obama talked to the Washington Post. And I'm sorry, to the Wall Street Journal. And so I don't know what's going on there. James Comer, who's in charge of the House Oversight Committee, says that James Biden, the brother of Joe, it looks like he's going to be coming in for one of those closed-door depositions sometime soon. Not all locked up. It's not done deal yet, but he seems to suggest it's getting close, and he said that before.
We're communicating with his attorney. We expect to see him in very soon. I'm going to hold off criticism of the president's brother. He's obviously he has due process, and we have heard from his attorney. We're trying to make that work, and I feel like that'll happen soon.
And so then will Hunter Biden make the decision to come in and testify? I don't know, but I'll tell you something. Jen Psaki, who used to work at the Biden White House, she says that the one thing that she's hearing from her friends that are still in the White House is they wish that Hunter Biden would stop talking to members of the press.
If you're sitting in the White House right now, you're like, please, Hunter Biden, we know your dad loves you. Please stop talking in public. This is not helpful to any of them for him to be out there. But at the same time, the president loves his son. That takes precedent over anything else.
Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, senator, of course, believes the narrative being presented by Hunter Biden in response to the impeachment inquiry is falling apart. Hunter Biden's story is falling apart. And here is some of the quotes. The idea that Joe Biden knew nothing about the business dealings is falling apart. They have to prove that President Biden somehow financially benefited from the business enterprise. We'll see. If there were a smoking gun, I think we'd be talking about it. I'm not sure of that fact. I think they may know more. I think the committees that are investigating may know more than they're saying because they have an interest in getting him in to answer questions, and then they're going to hit him with it. So I think they're holding back some information, but in one way or the other, you know that we moved to a formal impeachment inquiry. 14-page measure was passed just before they went out on December 13th. It was party line vote 221 to 212. The action gives more power to the probe to investigate the actions of the president. It formalizes that entire process. But I did find interesting this. Speaking on Newsmax Wake Up America to anchor Rob Finnerty, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, Republican of Oklahoma, said 5 Democrats that he's talked to in the Senate said to him that they're willing to look at an impeachment case against Biden if one comes over from the House. He said if the House sends over an airtight case that it completely easily points to the president breaking the law, they would look at it like any other case. And they would go into it without a bipartisan look, but with a look at it, well, was there a crime committed? So here's the transact. Have any Democrat senators mentioned to you off the record again that they would look at this fairly and objectively? Mullen said yes. You're talking about a yes vote on impeaching the president if it gets there. They said if it was a convictable offense, they would definitely be looking to convict. Okay, and not as a nonpartisan, bipartisan look. I've had conversations with 5, I will not name them because I don't want to put them in a position, but with 5 separate senators, all 5 of them have said the exact same thing. That they're open to voting for the impeachment? Yes. Well, that would be interesting, and it would be. So the question is, can they put that case together? One thing about it is, you may hear the Democrats say, there's nothing here that's been proved. There's nothing been proved. Okay. I have a lot of faith in the legal analysis of Jonathan Turley. And here's what he said. He pushed back against the argument, stating that not only has there been an enormous amount of evidence against the president and his family, but most people agree it is influence peddling. It's simply not true. I mean, there's been an enormous amount of evidence put together by the House committees, millions of dollars that have gone through a labyrinth of different accounts and shell companies to Biden family members. There are Biden associates who said that what the president has said publicly is nonsense, that he didn't know about his influence peddling, and most people agree that this is influence peddling, this is corruption. He said that there is no necessity, listen to this, no necessity to really show that the money had directly gone to Biden for him to be impeached, emphasizing its standard in federal cases that have involved bribery and other crimes. This is the exact quote. I have to correct one notion that's being bantered about, and that is that you really have to show that the money went directly to the president. That's not the standard in federal cases involving bribery and other crimes. Giving money to a principal's family is, in fact, a benefit under federal law. Otherwise, everyone would just give money to family members and say it's not a bribe, it's not impeachable. And by the way, he says it is impeachable. He mentions he was the lead counsel in the last traditional impeachment trial. His client was impeached because benefits were given to a judge's family member. So many of these congressmen repeating this argument that on impeachment it has to go directly to Biden, they're incorrect, according to Jonathan Turley. It is an impeachable offense to have the family benefit from an influence peddling scandal without any direct evidence that money went into his account. And by the way, we've got some evidence that suggests money did go into Biden's account. So don't let anybody tell you that it's not an impeachable offense, because it absolutely is if you look at the federal standard that is used in bribery cases. I don't know. Do you think Joe Biden's going to step down? I would say this. I think, there's two times when this could happen. One, I would say during the convention. The other, just before the holidays, maybe. And that would be Friday. 6:50 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's talk about gold, which has been used as money for millennia. It's a tried and true store of value, consistent across generations. Some have observed that generational wealth has three components: land, art, and precious metals. I don't know about land because, interest rates are really high. Art, I don't know enough about art to make a good judgment, but I can hold gold, platinum, and silver right in my hot little hand. Inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money. Gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. And you can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold & Coin. Maybe you have gold that was given to you, and maybe you're not sure what it's worth, or you're curious about metals and want to learn more. Well, they are always available to discuss your options and educate you on the precious metals market. So do what I did and go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold & Coin. That's Nashville Gold & Coin. Set up your one-on-one appointment by going to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. There was a recent study by J.D. Power looking at how happy investors were with their advisors, and it wasn't pretty. What they found was only 11% of the respondents said that they were getting comprehensive financial planning, that the fees were clear, and that they felt that the advisor was acting in their best interest. Not a good picture, 11%. Now, one of the things that we do is we do comprehensive planning. We fit all of those bills, number one. But one of the things I want to talk about is in the financial planning process, what I think it ought to look like and what is available that people aren't getting. And one of the things is called probability analysis. So in essence, this is what we're talking about. We're trying to accumulate money for retirement. Put money aside, hoping that we'll have enough so that we can have income throughout retirement. And what we find is that people have Social Security, they have pensions in their financial plan, and they also have investments. Now, with their investments, we want to do something very specific that it really requires quite an academic background to do this. And this is where we look at the cost of capital
and that's why
of
Dr.
the various
Kellum is an
things that you
official
own
doctor
in your
with the
investment
Tennessee
portfolio.
Titans. And you
It
can
sounds
call
scary,
right
it
now,
sounds really detailed, but here's the idea.
615-850-4450.
Is if we
For
look
the
at
Kellum
various
Stem
asset
Cell
classes like
Institute,
large stocks and small
Kellum,
stocks
the
and
Kellum
large
Stem Cell
value and
Institute.
bonds and so on
Okay,
and so
so
forth.
you filed your taxes this year, but you know you have past IRS issues. And now the IRS letters are coming. Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. Don't ignore those IRS letters. They're important and give you rights and deadlines to defend yourself. Waiting could cause you to lose those rights. Call the Lance Story Law Firm now and let us help you get ahead of the IRS and defend your rights while you still have time. The Lance Story Law Firm is located here in Nashville, so take the first step and hire a tax resolution attorney. We've made it super easy to schedule your free consultation in person, or you can do a phone call and save travel time. Remember, IRS problems are legal problems, so before you send money to some out-of-town, high-pressure salesperson, give us a call at the Lance Story Law Firm. Call today at 615-733-8168. That's 615-733-8168. Or go visit LanceDruryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Portfolios well designed and properly managed in ways that I can't get into right now. It's too complicated.
As soon as you walk
Portfolios actually
Our
close
famous
in an
waiting rooms,
expected
none of that
return.
nasty
We don't know what
grease
the
that you sit on in other shops.
returns are
And
going
our
to be.
spot
spotless repair
So what
centers.
we do is
it's
we
apparent we
project out
care
and say,
in
well, what if the
everything we do,
return
and
that
includes
happened
the
in
quality of the work we
1936
perform.
is followed
The
the
proof is in
by the
our
return that
nationwide
happened in
3-year warranty on all
1975, which is
repairs.
followed by the
And if
return
you've
in
not given us a try, I
1995,
highly
or
recommend
what
you
if it's
do.
reversed?
Our
What if they
customers leave
happen in
amazed at
different
how
orders?
affordable our
And
prices
we can
are.
do 1,000
Remember, we have
iterations,
top
different
quality repairs
variations on
without
when
dealer
those
pricing.
and how those
And we
returns
actually
may
do
come
call
in.
you back when we
and
say
what
we
that
will.
does
If you're
is 'cause
tired
we
of calling
can't
dealerships
predict
who
the
don't
future, what
listen,
return's going
and
to
you're
follow
tired of
the
repeating
other,
yourself
we can
over and
figure
over, then
out,
come to Eurofix.
is it
We keep
likely
your car
that
on
we
the
are going
road
to be
and
able to
off the
take
tow
the
truck.
income that we
Others
need
tell you what
throughout
they can't
retirement
do,
from
but we
this
tell you what we
portfolio?
can
And
do.
if not,
We
how
specialize in
can we
fixing European
rearrange the
cars in
furniture or
Franklin,
the
South
portfolio
Nashville,
to give us
Bellmead,
a
Murfreesboro,
higher
and now
likelihood
Mount
of
Juliet.
success?
Give us a
We
call,
look at life
844
expectancies, we
Eurofix,
look at
or
a
go to
lot of different things, but this is what is available to people that they're not getting
Hey,
from
it's
the
Dan
financial
Mandis.
planning
If you have a
community. If
wet
you want to know
basement
more,
or crawl space,
go
it
to
is time for you to call
paulwinkler.com. Set up a
USS,
free
United
15-minute
Structural
phone
Systems.
call.
Now, we've all heard about
paulwinkler.com,
these guys for
and
years.
come in
a long
and
time,
find
and
out
for good
more
reason.
about what we
They've
do.
been serving Middle Tennesseans since 1994, and they've helped thousands of satisfied residential customers. They are the go-to company when it comes to foundation repair and waterproofing. Now, water intrusion and moisture could give you all sorts of problems down the road, and you need to get this fixed. You need to call USS. Whatever your waterproofing issue, USS has a plan to fix